We went through exhaustive efforts to look at potential ignition sources, whether they were fireworks, whether they were down power lines, or any other source of ignition. They went down those investigative paths with exhaustive length to either rule them in or rule them out. With clarity, we know this is an incendiary fire and that the subject that we arrested started it.
Would you say that this subject was obsessed with fire and wanted to see those images?
Once again, that speaks to motive. That's not an element that we need to meet. That will be addressed in the trial. And we do have evidence of that for trial.
What was the rap song?
I'm not going to go into those specifics. I'll just highlight, we're not making a probable cause arrest. This team up here feels that we have met beyond a reasonable doubt. We are confident that the burden of proof by the government on this presumed innocent person will be met in trial.
Based on the AI images that you did show, was it his intent to cause as much destruction to the town? You show the AI images for a reason, so it definitely leads to that impression. And I would just like that on the record.
I wish we could get into somebody's head, but we can't. People do evil things for whatever reason. And I'm not going to speculate or go into anything of that. Like, we have evidence of that will be addressed in trial, but evil people do evil things.
Let me answer her real quick. I'll let him answer that in a second. It is a French rap song. I don't speak French, so I'm not going to quote it. But it's a French song. It is in the complaint, and you'll be able to look it up there. We will prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he intentionally started this fire and maliciously. That is what the statute that we charged him requires, and that is what we prove. I'll let you answer her question about the holdover fire. Let him answer.
Your question to a holdover fire. Same principle, same process that ATF went through, is obviously the burn scar and the fire from the initial January 1st Lockman fire was re-examined by our investigators, and with complete certainty they were able to see from the same fire behaviors, from them crawling on their hands and knees, digging up roots, digging up all the evidence, supplying that fuel to the fire research lab. They were able, and also in collaboration of other data and other evidence. We have fixed surveillance points. We have witnesses that were up with their phones. We have a lot of different data that all concluded where this fire started, and the fire behavior from that origin, from that Lockman fire, was clearly established in the Palisades fire.
Were the passengers dropped off at home or at a business? I'm just trying to get a sense of where he was on his path that then led him up to that hillside.
He dropped passengers off within the residential area of that area.
Two more questions.
I can answer that. So right now, we've charged him on a criminal complaint. We have not determined all the charges he's going to face. We'll be presenting that evidence to a grand jury, and we will make decisions about additional charges at that time. So this is right now just a criminal complaint. We wanted to arrest him. We wanted to get him into custody, this will go to a grand jury shortly.
Last question.
Did the suspect return back on January 7th? Was he in the area considering he lived in the Palisades during that period?
I don't know that we know that. Yeah, I'm not going to comment on that. He did go back the same night. So the night he started the fire, he left. As soon as he saw the fire trucks were headed to the location, he turned around and went back up there. And he took some video and watched them fight the fire.
The charges that you're talking
Last question.
Yeah, just for January 1st, right? He has not been charged with anything for January 7th?
No, he is charged with starting a fire on January 1st, which is the fire that burned down the Palisades. It did take a week to reignite, but he is charged with starting the Palisades fire. He started it on January 1st.
But that's why you got that question about the people who lost their lives in the January 7th fire. Do you expect additional charges for that?
This complaint covers that fire and the damages and deaths that were caused by that fire. As far as what additional charges he will face, we will make those determinations in the coming days. Thank you all very much.
All right, thank you. Press release is out, the complaint is out, so, and I'll try to get this back after. All right, good afternoon to all of you. It's 12:11. It's almost Farhan time, just 10 minutes later. All right, I'll start off with the statement that we issued late last night on the second anniversary of the October 7th attack. In the statement, the Secretary General said that 2 years ago today, Hamas and other Palestinian armed groups launched an abhorrent, large-scale terror attack on Israel. On this day, he said, let us remember all those who were killed and suffered horrific violence. 2 years later, Mr. Guterres said that hostages remain captive in Gaza in deplorable conditions, adding that he has met with hostage families and survivors who share their unbearable pain with him. He said today, with even greater urgency, release the hostages unconditionally and immediately, end the suffering for all, put an end to the hostilities in Gaza, in Israel, and the region right now. He said that the recent proposal by U.S. President Donald J. Trump presents an opportunity that must be seized to bring this tragic conflict to an end. a permanent ceasefire and a credible political process are essential to prevent further bloodshed and pave the way for peace. His full statement is online, as are statements from the Emergency Relief Coordinator, Tom Fletcher, the Deputy Special Coordinator for the Middle East Peace Process, Ramiz Alabkarov, and the UNRWA Commissioner General Philippe Lazzarini, and many others. You will also see that last night we issued a statement on Yemen regarding the most recent arbitrary detentions by the Houthis of 9 additional UN personnel. Unfortunately, this morning our colleagues in Yemen told us that of the detention of 1 more UN staff. This brings the total number of arbitrarily detained UN staff by the Houthis in Yemen to 54, and this goes back to 2021. The Secretary General strongly condemns this arbitrary detention of UN personnel, as well as that of our partners, and the ongoing unlawful seizure of UN premises and assets in areas under Houthi control. These actions hinder our ability to operate in Yemen and to deliver critical assistance to those who need it. And the Secretary General remains deeply concerned about the safety and security of our personnel in Yemen. As we've been telling you constantly, their whereabouts remain unknown, and the Houthi de facto authorities have not permitted any physical access to any of them, despite repeated requests on our part. The Secretary General reiterates his urgent call for the immediate and unconditional release of all personnel from the United Nations, non-governmental organizations, civil society organizations, and diplomatic missions. They must be respected and they must be protected in accordance with applicable international law. The premises and assets of the United Nations are inviolable and must be protected at all times, consistent with the Charter and the Conventions on the Privileges and Immunities of the United Nations. We assure our colleagues that we will continue to work tirelessly and through all available channels to secure their safe and immediate release, as well as the return of UN agency offices and other assets. The Secretary General remains steadfast in our commitment to support the people of Yemen and their aspirations for a just and lasting peace. Turning to the situation on the ground in Gaza, I can tell you that our colleagues at the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs report that Israeli military operations, including airstrikes and shelling, continued across multiple areas, causing more civilian casualties, widespread displacement, and the destruction of critical infrastructure. Earlier today, a rocket was reportedly launched from Gaza towards Israel, though no casualties or damage was reported. Civilians continue to bear the brunt of hostilities, destruction, and mass displacement, with women and girls being the most at risk. The UN Population Fund and its partners reported yesterday that incidents of gender-based violence in Gaza surged 26% between July and August, with rising cases of sexual exploitation, domestic violence, and economic abuse. The renewed offensive in Gaza City has contributed to the collapse of referral systems for gender-based violence in the area, leaving women and girls without safe access and support. Despite the challenges, partners responding to gender-based violence in Gaza City, many of whom are displaced and impacted themselves, continue to deliver psychosocial support, case management, and other services wherever and whenever they can. OCHA reminds us that humanitarian partners face severe physical bureaucratic obstacles that prevent the delivery of life-saving assistance at the scale required. Inside Gaza, looting, including by armed actors, has further hampered humanitarian operations. Yesterday, 8 out of 20 missions coordinated by the UN with Israeli authorities were facilitated, and that included the collection of supplies from the Karim Shalom crossing. 4 missions were canceled by the organizers, and 4 missions were denied, which included the collection of food cargo that had entered Gaza. 4 other missions were impeded on the ground. These include collections of food cargo from the Karim Shalom, Karim Abu Salam, and Kisufim crossings, which were partially accomplished, as well as collection of medical supplies, which was fully accomplished despite various impediments. For a meaningful scale-up of humanitarian operations, additional crossing points must be open, and restrictions on the entry and movements of humanitarian aid inside Gaza must be lifted immediately. Currently, the limited number of humanitarian organizations and UN agencies are authorized by Israeli authorities to bring in supplies, a limitation that continues to undermine the scale-up of our response efforts. And moving north to our peacekeeping mission in southern Lebanon, in the past few days, UNIFIL tells us they have found several unauthorized weapons and ammunition caches in sector west of their area of operations. That includes mortar shells and a rocket in front of a tunnel. Peacekeepers also discovered submunitions and fuses in sector east. Meanwhile, on Saturday, a UNIFIL patrol reported that one individual had fired 2 shotgun rounds in the air in the vicinity of a patrol before driving away near Dibal in Sector West. And on Friday, Israeli Defense Forces personnel pointed green lasers several times towards UNIFIL patrol vehicles in Sector East. These incidents obviously jeopardize the safety of our colleagues, and they must stop. UNIFIL reports continued IDF military presence and activities in their area of operations. On Sunday, peacekeepers observed 5 IDF soldiers opening fire towards 3 individuals who were cutting iron rods from the rubble near Marwahin in Sector West. The peacekeepers saw the individuals leave the area subsequently. This morning, the Security Council held a briefing on cooperation between the United Nations and the African Union. Parfait Onanga Anyanga, the Secretary General's special representatives to the African Union, highlighted the strong collaboration between the two organizations, reiterating that the Secretary General has said that the UN and the African Union have developed a unique partnership rooted in the principles of complementarity, respect, and African ownership, a partnership that has become a cornerstone of multilateralism. Turning to peace and security challenges in the continent, he said security sector reform and governance remain key elements of the UN-AU partnership, particularly in addressing the root causes of conflict and consolidating peace. For her part, Martha Poby, the Assistant Secretary General for Africa, updated Council members on the implementation of Resolution 2719, which was conceived as a means to address long-standing gap in the African Union's peace and security architecture to better respond to conflict on the African continent. She said that as we reflect on the future of peace operations and seek efficiencies, it becomes even more evident that Resolution 2719 meets the moment. The resolution seeks to ensure that we leverage our respective advantages in keeping the pact for the future, the new agenda for peace, and silencing the gun initiatives. Those remarks were shared with you. A couple of notes from Africa to share with you. Our colleagues in the Democratic Republic of the Congo report that between January and the end of September this year, joint efforts by our peacekeeping mission and UNICEF led to the release of 410 children from armed groups in North Kivu and Ituri province. Those were 344 boys and 66 girls, which have all been referred to appropriate reintegration services. During the same period, 165 cases of child recruitment and use were verified by the UN, including 30 girls and 135 boys. Our colleagues tell us that these numbers underscore the continued vulnerability of children in areas impacted by conflict, and also highlights the urgent need for sustained protection measures, including prevention, accountability, long-term reintegration support. As part of the mandate under the Children Armed Conflict Framework, the peacekeeping mission works to prevent and respond to grave violations against children, including their recruitment and use by armed actors. The mission supports national authorities in implementing action plans, strengthening the capacity of security forces, and reporting violations to the UN's monitoring mechanism, all with the aim of promoting accountability and increasing child protection. And from regarding Chad, our emergency relief coordinator, Tom Fletcher, today released $1 million from the Central Emergency Response Fund for an urgent response to the deadly cholera outbreak in Chad. The new funding aims to contain the spread of the disease, mainly by improving access to water and sanitation, providing medical support and strengthening community engagements, and to raise awareness with the risks and encourage proactive prevention. The outbreak is impacting the eastern province of Wadai and Sila, which are hosting a large number of people displaced by the conflict in neighboring Sudan. as well as the central province of Gera. As of Sunday, more than 2,600 cases were reported and 150 deaths as well. These figures indicate a potential case fatality rate of 6%, far higher than the emergency threshold of 1%, as defined by WHO. The new funding complements $3 million previously allocated for cholera in Chad. And so far this year, the Central Emergency Response Fund has released $11 million to mitigate in response to cholera outbreak in 5 African countries, including Chad. OCHA remains deeply grateful to donors who support our Central Emergency Response Fund and other pooled fund, which allows for fast-track response efforts. Turning to Mozambique, our colleagues at UNHCR said they're deeply concerned that rapidly
thanks to the
growing
work of the
displacement
ATF
in
and
northern Mozambique
investigative
as
support from both the
conflict that is
LAPD
entering
and
its
the Los
8th
Angeles Fire
year
Department
appears to be
and the U.S.
intensifying again.
Forest Service
Nearly
for their hard
22,000
work in
people
this
forced to flee
investigation.
from their homes.
I'm going to turn it
in a
over now to
single
Kenny
week
Cooper, who's
in
a special
last
agent in
month.
charge of the
The
ATF
new wave of
Los
displacement is
Angeles
among the
Field
largest
Office.
recorded this year, with over 100,000 people already forced to escape. Since the conflict started in
Good morning.
2017,
My
more
name is
than
Kenny Cooper. I'm the
1.3
special
million
agent in
human
charge
beings have been
of
displaced,
ATF's Los Angeles
caught
Field
between
Division.
insecurity, loss,
Today
and repeated
marks a
upheaval.
significant
For the
moment
first time
in a
since
long
the
road
start
to
of the
justice
conflict,
for our
all
community.
17 districts
After
in the
more than
Cabo
8 months
Delgado
of
province
tireless,
have been directly
meticulous work,
affected.
I
A
stand here with
simultaneous
our
attack
partners,
against the province
proud to
has
announce
sowed
an
fear
arrest
and
in connection
instability.
to the
And just to
devastating
note,
Palisades
tomorrow at
fires that
11:15,
claimed
there will be a
lives,
briefing here by
destroyed
Carla
homes, and
Quintana,
shook this
the head of the
community to
Independent
its core.
Institution on Missing Persons
Jonathan
in the Syrian
Lindernesh,
Arab
age
Republic.
29, residing
She
in
will brief on
Melbourne,
the Secretary
Florida,
General's
was
report to the
taken into
General
federal
Assembly
custody by
on the
ATF
activities
special
of her
agents, a
institution.
Los
At
Angeles
noon,
City
I will
Fire
have a
Department
guest,
investigator,
and that is
and a
Olukemi
Los Angeles
Ibikunle, a
police
Nigerian
detective.
corrections expert serving with
This
the UN
partnership
peacekeeping
and
force
arrest
in the
is
Democratic Republic of the
significant
Congo. She is
the
the
three
winner of the
agencies working
2025
hand in glove to get
Trailblazer
this
Award for
investigation
Women
to where it
Justice and
is.
Corrections Officers.
Rinderneck, as the
She will
U.S.
be-
Attorney
the award will be
mentioned,
presented
is
to her
charged
later
under
that
Title
day by the
18,
Deputy
844F,
Secretary General.
malicious
It's an
destruction by
initiative
means of a fire,
established
real
in
property owned by an
2022 by the
organization
Justice and
receiving
Corrections
federal
Service
financial
of the
assistance.
Office of the Rule of Law and Security
I know this
Institutions, and it
community has
recognizes
endured a long
outstanding
wait for
contributions
answers.
of women justice
have
and
carried an
corrections
unmanageable
officers
grief.
deployed as governments
An entire
provided personnel
community
to UN peace
has been left to
operations.
heal while living with questions.
Voila.
Although we cannot share
Edith,
every
letter.
detail of this investigation,
So
it
sorry.
is a still is,
Thank you,
is
Steph.
still an active investigation.
is
and
there any
judicial proceedings
update
remain
on,
ahead. I can tell you
UN
this:
humanitarian
from day one, ATF and our partners
preparations
have been
in
relentless.
case of
We made a promise
a
to find
Gaza
answers, and we have kept that
ceasefire?
promise.
And is
To give
any
you a sense of
senior
the work, I want to
UN
highlight the extraordinary
official
level of
in
cooperation
Cairo
between ATF and our
monitoring
partners.
the
Los
talks?
Angeles City
I'm not
Fire
aware of any
Department, the Los
colleague
Angeles Police
in
Department,
Egypt to
the Orange
monitor the
County
talks.
Fire
We obviously
Authority,
remain in
and the
touch
United States
with
Forest
various
Service.
parties. I mean, we've been
LA City Fire
we've been
asked for
calling
our
for a
assistance, and
ceasefire,
within
calling for the
24 hours,
reopening
ATF's
of
National
the
Response Team
of
arrived
the
on
crossings,
scene.
calling for the release
The
of
NRT,
hostages
ATF's
for quite
NRT
some
is an
time
elite
now.
team
So we've
comprised of
been
certified
ready to
fire
go
investigators,
for quite some
electrical
time.
and fire
But we're
protection
obviously following
engineers, chemists,
the latest developments very
accelerant detection
closely.
K-9 teams, and
And
other experts.
Is there any
We arrived
update
within 24 hours and
more
got to work with
granular
our partners.
from particularly
processed
Gaza
hundreds of
City
acres of
and
damaged fire,
the north
examining every
on,
inch for the smallest clue.
Israeli
Over the course of the last 8
operations
months,
and the impact
investigators
on
conducted
No, I
hundreds
mean,
of
no,
interviews,
no more than I've
including
given you.
witnesses
As I said,
overseas,
we've reported
and
that
pursued more
there's
than
been
200
continued
leads.
Israeli
We
shelling
collected more
and some
than
military activity.
13,000 items of evidence, including
Last
fire
year
debris,
in June, before the
digital
peace
data,
deal reached, the Security
DNA
Council adopted a
samples,
resolution
all
to
analyzed by
endorse the
ATF's
U.S.
state-of-the-art
backed
forensic lab.
ceasefire deal during
Our
Biden
team carried out
administration.
500
Does the
scientific
Secretary General
tests
would support such
supported by
such
ATF's Fire Research
action
Lab,
for the Security Council
nation's
to have
only
another
large-scale
draft to
fire
support
science
the
lab
current
dedicated
ceasefire?
to
Look,
fire
I don't want to
investigations.
say anything that would
More than
impact
10 of our top engineers
delicate
and
discussion,
support
but I would
staff
say obviously
contributed to this laboratory
any
analysis.
full-throated backing from the
This
Security Council
investigation
to
has been
peace
documented
initiatives
over 300 ATF
carries a
reports,
positive impact.
including a
sorry, I have
200-page
several other
report
questions.
detailing
I'm
the
sorry.
origin and
Don't
cause of
apologize.
this investigation.
It's the
ATF
second
technical
anniversary
surveillance
since the October 7th.
specialists
Today,
were
Brown
integral in
University
reviewing
released
approximately
a report
1.5
suggesting that
million
after
phone records
October
and
7th
data
of
extracted
2023,
from digital
U.S.
And I
gave
highlight this because
military
I know
aid
there's
to
questions on the link that it
21.7
took
billion
us to
US
come to this
dollars to
conclusion.
Israel. And
But
the
we were
spending
reviewing
for
a lot of
U.S.
evidence
military
from one of the
operation in
most
Greater
catastrophic
Middle East
fires
region
in the U.S.
now
history.
is
Through this extraordinary team effort,
33.7 billion US
investigators
dollars.
determined
What
that the
is the
Palisades
reaction from
Fire,
the Secretary
which
General
reported
on
on
these numbers?
January
I haven't
7th,
seen the
was
report, but I
caused by
will
an
refer you
intentionally
back
set
to the
fire
report that the
near a
Secretary General
viewpoint
came
along the
here
Temescal
himself
Ridge Trail
to
into
launch
Pegna
on
State Park on
global
January 1st.
military spending
The
and
fire
the
was a
impact, the
holdover
negative
fire,
impact it's having
meaning it was deeply
on
seated
all
in
sorts of
dense
other needs
vegetation
that we need
and
around
roots and continued
the
to
world.
burn
And as we've always
undetected
said,
until
I think
catastrophic
any
weather
member state, any
ensued,
country that
resulting in the
exports
Palisades Fire.
weapons has a
Render Nash is now
responsibility
charged with setting
on
the
how those
January
weapons are
1
used.
fire. We
That's
know
it?
this arrest
Oh,
cannot
okay.
erase the
Benny.
pain or grief or
Two
losses
questions.
endured, but we hope
Actually,
it
one
is a
is,
step forward.
you
It is proof that
mentioned the
justice will not
shelling
be forgotten,
in Gaza.
that our accountability will be pursued by
couple of
ATF and our
rockets
partners,
fired
no matter
from
how
Gaza
complex
I
the
mentioned that as well,
investigation,
Benny.
Oh, I missed
and no
that.
matter how
Okay.
long it takes.
Damn. And for
To the families
drones
who lost so
from
much,
Yemen.
we hear you.
We've been, I think
We
we
honor you.
we have been very
And we will
consistent
continue to fight
But,
for you.
in
The ATF
calling out and
established an
condemning
email address for the
the
victims and
launching
witnesses to contact
of drones
ATF
and other
victim
missiles by the
witnesses
Houthis towards
assistance
Israel.
program
To
through
my
the
real
Palisades
question.
at ATF.gov.
So
Once again, I'll say
this
that,
is
the
the
Palisades at
season of the
ATF.gov.
Nobel.
Based on the information
And
received,
as you
a
know,
regional victim witness
President Trump
specialist may
has been
contact you.
nominated by
That's my initial
some
statement.
heads of
I'm gonna hand
state
it over
as
to
well
the
as
chief of
others.
LA
Other people have been
LA
nominated,
Police
including
Department Chief
Greta
McDonough,
Thunberg.
and I
Has
will be open to
anyone
questions
nominated
afterwards.
the
Thank you.
Secretary General for the Nobel?
I don't
Thank you,
know. I
Kenny.
don't work for the
Good
Nobel
morning, and thank you all for
Committee,
being
and I
here.
don't have the
I wanna
list of
begin
people
by
who have been
thanking the U.S.
nominated,
Attorney's
but I'm sure
Office,
you can find
our
that
partners at the
using
Bureau
the
of
Google
Alcohol,
machine.
Tobacco,
Benny.
But has
Firearms, and
anyone
Explosives,
nominated
and the
the-
dedicated
I
men
don't-
and
the guy
women of
you
our
speak
Robbery
for?
Homicide Division and
I
Major
know the guy
Crimes
who I speak
Division.
for.
I also want to recognize
This
and
is
thank
not
Los
an
Angeles
issue
City
that
Fire
he has
Department
been
and all of the
focused on
investigators who came
or paid any
together to
attention
support
to.
this case.
Because
You look at
past
the team standing here,
secretaries
and
general
I
I'm
couldn't be
fully
more
aware
proud
of
what
that, Benny.
was
But, I
done
mean, was
throughout
that-
this
was it-
investigation.
so was there a
It
question mark?
extremely intensive and
Yeah, I
thorough,
was wondering
and the
if,
best of the best were
everybody
working
is
on it. I'm very thankful
anticipating
for
the
the partnership
announcement,
we
if
enjoy
we
with
should
all of them all the
anticipate
time.
the
The
announcement
the
investigation into
United
the
Nations.
Palisades
the
Fire of
announcement of the
January
Nobel Peace
2025
Prize
was
on a
lengthy
Friday in
and complex,
October
and as I
always
mentioned, extremely thorough.
carries
Our
a lot of
detectives
interest
responded
in this
immediately to
building.
the initial incident
So
and
you
worked
don't
side by
expect the
side
SG
with
Ben,
our
I-
partners
I'm
at the
not-
Los
I'm-
Angeles
you know,
Fire
it's- I'm
Department.
not putting money
And once
down
the
on
ATF's
FanDuel about
national
this.
response team took on the case.
Please, go ahead.
They led the investigation, and our detectives remain
Letícia
fully
Dag
engaged
Hammarskjöld,
as
fellow
partners
representing
every
All
step
Global
of the
from
way
Brazil.
with
So
them.
on another
I'm
topic,
proud of the professionalism and
yesterday,
dedication
following a
shown by our
conversation with
detectives and
President
the team
Lula, President
who work
Trump was
collaboratively
asked
with our federal,
whether he
state,
would
and local
attend
partners.
COP30.
That teamwork
And he
ultimately
replied
led to the
that
arrest
he
of the
would go to
suspect
Brazil at
responsible
some
for this
point.
devastating
So do you have
crime.
any comment on
The
that
Palisades Fire
and
was
on
a
the
tragedy
exchange
that caused enormous harm to the
between the
city
two
of
of
Los
them
Angeles.
and
But in
the
the midst of
possibility
that
of President
devastation,
Trump
we saw
engaging
something
with
else.
COP30?
Communities
Well,
coming together with law
on
enforcement,
COP30,
supporting one another,
obviously,
and working
all
through a
heads of
very, very
states and
difficult
governments have
time.
been,
This case is a
invited.
reminder of the value of strong partnerships
Participation
across every
by
level of
the
government.
major
When we
economies,
stand together,
is critical.
local, state, and
So we'll
federal,
see what
we are
happens.
stronger, more
On
effective,
the issue
and better
between
able to
President
deliver
Lula
justice
and,
for our communities.
and,
I'm deeply grateful to
President
everyone
Trump,
who
it's not for us
contributed to
to
this
comment, but we
investigation,
did
and I look
note,
forward to continuing this
that
strong
they
spirit
had
of
a
collaboration
brief
as we work
and
to
what was
keep Los
described as a
Angeles
good
safe.
meeting here at the
Thank you
United
all.
Nations,
Now,
which we were happy to host.
turn it back
no matter
over
how
to
brief.
U.S.
Islam,
Attorney Bill Asaley.
Thank you, Stefan. I might have
We will be
two
unsealing
questions
the
as well.
complaint
First
if it hasn't been
question
already.
is,
I
It
see
has
you've gotten the hang of
much more
this briefing
details than what
pretty-
we've gone
pretty
over
well.
today in there, and that'll
Well,
be available
trying
to
to
you.
adjust.
At this time,
Welcome.
we'll take a
Go
few
ahead.
questions.
you mentioned about
Okay, we'll start there.
gender-based violence in Gaza surged 26% between July and August. Is this? Can you clarify this more? Is this
I'm
has
not going to
anything
get into
to do with
specific statements. I
occupational
can tell you
forces or
ATF
only
has
for
determined that the
Palestinian
fire was a
among
I mean, it has
open
to
flame.
do.
And also, what is the reason? Any assessment on that?
Well, the reason is, the reason
Yeah,
for
he was
increased,
familiar with this particular neighborhood, and he had a friend
gender-based
who
violence
was,
is the
who
breakdown
lived in this neighborhood.
of
So he knew
society,
this
right?
neighborhood.
And whenever there are
He was a resident of
moments
Southern California. Do you know
where
what city
people,
he lived in?
especially women and girls, are increasingly vulnerable, sadly,
Yeah,
we
he actually
see
did
a
live in
rise
Palisades,
gender-based
and he was
violence.
familiar with the
Your
neighborhood in
second
which this
question.
started.
My second question is partially,
Yes,
it was asked,
it's
but
Arson.
I
Yes.
will follow up.
Okay, let me go here.
Regarding cost of war at Brown University report, almost U.S. spent $22 billion actually as a financial aid past 2
Yeah.
years. Now, I just would like
Yeah,
to make
we're
a
not going to get
comparison
into
as
the
a
full fire
journalist.
response.
Do
I'll
you
just tell you the
know
fire
how
department
much
did respond, and they don't say they put out fires, they
UN and
suppress the fire.
partners
So they use the best of their
spent
abilities
as a,
at that time to suppress
humanitarian
it.
aid
Like we
in
said,
past 2
there was
years
dense
in Gaza?
vegetation. The fire went
The last 2
underground.
years in Gaza,
and,
I don't have
you
it
know,
off
I'm
the
not a
top of my
fire
head,
expert,
but
but
what I
there's
can tell
only
you
so
is
much
whatever
apparently
we
you can do about
spent
that. So
was not enough.
it did smolder
But
there
any
until
number-
later,
I
which the
can
winds
get. I don't
picked up
have.
and
I'm bad
reignited.
in numbers
So that's
to
our
start with,
understanding
so
of
I
it
don't want to
started.
estimate.
Let me go
but
over
we can
here.
come up with a number of how much money we've spent on the humanitarian.
He relocated, yes.
Yes, please go ahead.
I'm reading the Secretary General's message to mark 2 years since the attack of October 7.
He just
the
finished
message
an Uber
begins
drive.
with a
So he
strong
just dropped
focus
someone
on the
off in that
Hamas
vicinity,
attack on
an
October
Uber
7,
drive. He was an Uber
2023.
driver. He dropped someone
and
off.
the,
He was in this neighborhood.
While the reference to
and
the
he was,
humanitarian
this
catastrophe
is New
and
Year's
the
Eve,
suffering
so it was around
of
midnight,
in Gaza
and he
come
went up
much
to this
later
hilltop.
and in broader
at
and
some
in
point
a
up there,
very
around 12,
broader
12
term.
a.m., he
How
ignited a
does the
fire.
Secretary General decide on this balance of emphasis and while we are marking this second anniversary?
Look, I will leave the, as we would say in French, the analyse de texte, right? The dissecting of the text.
We have no
to
evidence
analysts
that any fireworks
and
were set off in
journalists.
this area
This
at the
was a
time the fire
message
ignited.
to mark the anniversary of a horrific
He-
attack.
I don't. Does he have criminal history?
Horrific terrorist attack, which
Yeah, he
led
does not have
to,
criminal history. We're
the
not going to get
killing,
into his
the maiming,
specific
and
statements.
suffering
We are going to tell
of
you,
people
though,
in
that he
Israel.
did speak to
This
us,
is what the
and
Secretary
he made
General
false statements.
was,
So that we will confirm.
was marking. We have
Yeah.
also, at the same time, and in parallel,
We're not going to get
been
into motive right
consistent
now because we're
in
going to have to
calling
prove this
out
case in
what is
court in front of a
happening
jury.
in
We don't
Gaza
want to
and
get
the
into
suffering
that
of
right now.
civilians.
We are laying
And
out
we
the
are
information
against
we
the
have in the
suffering of
complaint.
civilians, whether they be
The evidence is
Palestinians,
based on, you
Israelis,
could see
or
some of the
anyone
key
else.
evidence, including the fact that
Yes, please.
he was the only person in this
Thank you,
location at the time this fire ignited.
the same question,
We have no other
this year
indication
marks
that any
the
other
30th
person was there.
anniversary of the fourth
There were no fireworks
World
at the
Conference
time.
on
We have
Women,
several
which is
cameras
held
in
in
the
Beijing
vicinity
in
that
1995.
are there designed to
And China will
detect
hold
fires. And
another
this fire was
summit on
detected
women-
almost
of
right
women
away by
this-
those
later this month.
sensors. So there's
I
no
wonder
indication
the
of
SG
fireworks
has
or
any
other
plan to
things that
attend
would have
the
started
summit.
this. He was the
And
only
what
person
is,
there.
expectation
You heard about
for
this
this summit?
No,
music
my
video and song he would listen
expectation,
to,
is that
which
the Deputy Secretary General will
had
be attending.
imagery of fires. And then do we have the
Yes,
image
please,
up?
we'll go first round, then we'll
Is
come
are we
back,
having
then we'll go
trouble with
online.
that?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Asim.
And you could
I'm
see
a
some of
fellow
his
journalist
thought
from Pakistan.
process in the
My
months
question
leading
is
up, where
about
he was
the
generating some
Iran's
really
foreign
concerning
office
images
has
up on
released a statement
ChatGPT,
that
which
it
appears
will
to show a
not hold
dystopian
any
city being
further talks
burned
with
down.
the West
So more
regarding
evidence
the
will come out at
nuclear.
trial, but we're
So
not going to
what
preview
is
the
your
entire
response
case
on
at this
We-
time. Yes, ma'am.
You know, from our standpoint, we think the door to diplomacy is never truly closed.
We
All
don't
right,
have any
let's go
information on
online.
that.
I'll go on. Abdelhamid, I feel a question.
Yes, I have a few. First, I want to commend my colleague who saw that this statement is very, very unbalanced. It's not analysis. It's
Yeah,
fact.
I'll let ATF
Now,
answer
my
that. There was a
question,
tremendous
Steph,
amount of work.
he saw
we
the
literally
hostages,
have
the
like
Israeli
terabytes
hostages,
of evidence.
and he shed
So I'm
tears.
going to let ATF
Didn't
answer the
he
work
see
that was
that
done
the
in this case,
Palestinian
including
people as a
the lab
whole
work.
is a hostage by a brutal occupation for 58 years?
Some further perspective on the
Abdelhamid, have you
investigative
not
process.
read anything
So,
the Secretary General has said about what is
I
going
know
on
there's
in
been
Gaza?
speculation
I think
of
his
other
message could
ignition
not
sources.
be clearer.
And
Your
I
next
just want to
question.
assure
My next
everyone,
question, again,
ATF
he
did not
mentioned the
identify the suspect
1,250
and
Israeli
focus
victims.
specifically on the
Rightly so.
suspect. We
But
still
didn't
utilize our
he-
scientific
so-
process.
or
And
was
part
it
of
more
the lengthy time that it
appropriate
took
to mention
to
the
go
67
over the thousands of acres that were burned
Palestinian
is we
killed
literally had
since October
agents
7?
with our partners
The-
on their
the
hands and
Secretary
knees
General
crawling through fire
has
debris. They're observing
placed in
fire
his
behavior
heart
patterns.
for all
They're flagging
victims.
patterns.
And he has
An
been very
example of
clear
that.
on
Fire
that.
will cause
And I think,
natural debris
Abdelhamid, let me,
to
and I
twist
think
and
we have been,
freeze
we have not
in a
been
position
shy,
pointing to
either
the
from
origin.
this podium or the Secretary General himself,
looking
in
at all those fire
speaking out
patterns,
loudly
flagging those,
about the
ATF was
atrocities
able
that
to
we see on a
zone
daily
to
basis in
specifically
Gaza.
get into the
Do you have another
origin
question?
of where that fire
No, I
started.
asked if that statement
Once they dialed into the
indicate what you
origin,
just said.
using all the investigative
Everything
techniques that
should
they
be
have,
seen as a
then they
whole.
start really dialing into
Okay.
that very
Deji,
specific
and then,
spot
Evelyn,
that
go
fire
ahead.
was created. An example of a fire research
Whoever,
lab,
it doesn't really matter.
they collected
All right, I'll go first.
buckets and buckets
First,
of
just,
debris.
just a response to
flammable
Benny.
materials, natural and otherwise.
the
found in
deadline-
that
no,
area,
no.
Sent
Okay.
it off to a
You-
fire
you will
research
speak-
lab.
You're
They
not here to respond to
analyzed
Benny.
Okay,
If you have
anyway,
a question,
from
ask me the
weather,
question.
Okay.
including
Okay?
humidity, the exact temperature,
So,
the
on
exact
Venezuela. It's been reported yesterday by New York Times
composition
that
of those
Trump administration now is
natural
cut off
fuels
its
found at that particular
diplomatic engagement
time.
with the Venezuelan
January 1st,
authority.
at that particular time,
Does the situation worried
recreated
about an
those
escalation?
environmental
Yeah,
factors
we,
in
of
our
course,
lab,
are worried about an
using their
escalation.
scientific process,
Can
then
I comment
tested
about Benny?
different ignition sources.
Evelyn.
And that's where 500 tests were conducted at that
In
lab.
the,
That
reports
review process
from
is then
from
looked
Africa,
at
was
by
there
a panel of
anything
our experts
about West
in a peer
Africa
review process
and any kind of
to
a
see if
follow-up
the
to
science
the-
matches up
to the
with
vol-
the theory
In which
and the-
report?
and the actual evidence that was collected.
Sorry.
I know it was also
Discussions
broadcast,
today
we
on that.
broadcasted it as a public safety announcement.
We've shared
back
with
in
you both,
spring.
both speeches.
We went up
So it
and
wasn't-
recreated a fire, very
Islam,
safely
then
with our
Islam,
partners with
then
fire,
we'll
with
close it.
LA Fire.
I'm sorry if it's
Using
going to get a little
butane and
controversial,
scientific
but I would like
process
to follow
to
up
create the fire
Benny's
behavior
question the other
to
day.
see, and I'll tell you, to the
about the
extent of the
flotilla,
scientific
just out of curiosity.
expertise that we went
He
through,
asked
we
if the
recreated it
interception of
in the
flotilla was
exact
legal or
lunar
not.
time that
My
the fire
question
started.
is,
Meaning the exact size
the
the moon
blockade
was,
of Gaza
and as close
is
to the
legal
starlit
or not from the UN
environment that
point.
that fire started.
I-
So we could
We have
recreate
been
scientifically a fire
very clear
and see
in
how
the
fixed surveillance
answers
points
that we've given to
saw
you
that fire as
on
it
the
developed
flotilla.
from other evidence that
you
we
may
collected.
not like them, and you and
both
Benny
from
can debate them.
witnesses'
and,
phones,
as
fixed surveillance
Tevier
points
would say in
and
Fiddler on the
other
Roof,
data.
you both have
We were able to
interesting
see how that
points.
fire behaved.
That's not the
how it
quote.
grew,
I think it's-
the size of that
No,
behavior.
you also have a point.
of
Exactly.
that
We'll check.
fire,
I'll have Fahad's
and
my
the
Fiddler
size
on the
that it
Roof
would be
quote
for
master.
witnesses
We'll
to
check
see
with
it
him.
reported.
But in all seriousness,
went through
we've
exhaustive
said what we've
efforts
had to say. We've
to
been very
look
clear
at
on the violations of
potential ignition
international law.
sources, whether
We've
they were
been
fireworks,
clear on
whether
the
down
fact
power
that
lines,
the-
or any other source
on
of
the issues
ignition.
regarding the
They
occupation.
went
and
down those
I won't be
investigative
dragged
paths
into it anymore.
with exhaustive links
Enjoy the rest of the
to
day.
either rule them in or rule them out. With clarity, we know this is an incendiary fire and that the subject that we arrested started it.
Would you say that this subject was obsessed with fire and wanted to do those images?
Once again, that speaks to motive. That's not an element that we need to meet. That will be addressed in the trial.
All right,
and we-
settle
and we-
down. Good
we
afternoon.
do have evidence of that for trial.
As we speak, the annual open
I'm not
debate
gonna
on
go
women,
into those
peace, and
specifics.
security is
I'll just
ongoing in the
highlight,
Security Council.
we're not
and that
making
is
a
taking
probable
place on
cause
the
arrest.
eve
This
of the
team up
25th
here
anniversary of
feels that
Security
we have
Council
met
Resolution
beyond a reasonable doubt.
1325.
We are
In his
confident
remarks,
that the burden of
Secretary
proof by the
General said
government
that at this
on this
important
presumed
meeting,
innocent person
a
will
quarter
be
of a
met in
century
trial.
ago, this resolution gave a voice to a simple truth, which is that women leadership is central to peace, to lasting peace. He added that more than 100 countries have adopted national action plans on women, peace, and security. However, too
I
frequently
wish we could
women
get into
remain
somebody's
absent
head.
from negotiating tables.
But we can't.
Sexual violence
People do
persists
evil
with impunity,
things
and women peace
for whatever
peace,
reason.
peace builders
And
are
I'm not going
underfunded,
to speculate or
underfed,
go into
and
anything of that. Like,
underrecognized.
we have
For
evidence
her
of
part,
that that
Sima
will be
Bahous,
addressed
the
in trial.
executive director of UN
but,
Women, said that today
evil people do
76
evil things.
million women and girls live within reach of a deadly conflict that
answer her
is the highest since the 1990s. The trends documented in the Secretary General's report should alarm us. She stated the coming few years should see
I'll let him
Security
answer that in a
Council
second.
Resolution
It is a French
1325
rap song.
implemented
I don't
fully
speak French, so I'm not
across
going to
all
quote it.
contexts.
But it's a
And
French song.
related
It
to
is in the
that
complaint,
topic, just
and
before
you'll be able to
delivering
look
the
it up
remarks,
there.
the Secretary
We
General,
will prove beyond a reasonable
together
doubt
with the
that he
Executive
intentionally
Director
started this fire.
of UN Women, Sima
And
Bahous,
maliciously.
visited
That is what the
exhibit
statute that we
entitled
charged him
Through Her
requires,
Lens,
and that is what we
Women
prove.
Rising for
I'll let
Peace,
you answer
which
her
is
question
located
about
just
the
outside the
holdovers.
General
Fire.
Assembly Hall.
Let him answer.
The exhibit features striking images by
Your
local
question
women
to holdover
photographers
fire.
capturing women
Same
peace
principle,
builders,
same process
human rights
that ATF
defenders, UN
provided,
peacekeepers, and
went through
community leaders
is
driving
obviously the
peace in
burn
some of the
scar
world's most
and
geographical
the,
context.
and
The display
the
will
fire
remain open
from
to
the
visitors
initial
through the month
January
of
1st
October.
Lockman fire
Turning to the situation
was
in
re-examined
Gaza,
by our investigators.
the emergency relief
and with complete
coordinator,
certainty, they were
Tom
able
Fletcher,
to
has
see
allocated
from the
$9
same
million
fire
from the
behaviors,
Central
from them
Emergency
crawling
Response
on their
Fund
hands and
to
knees,
ensure
digging
adequate
up
fuel
roots,
supplies
digging up
to
all
keep
the evidence,
life-saving services
supplying that
running
fuel
in
to
the
the
Gaza
fire
Strip.
research lab.
Meanwhile, the Office of the
They were
Coordination
able,
of Humanitarian
and also
Affairs
in
reports a
collaboration of
reduction in
other data
airstrikes
and
in
other
recent
evidence.
days,
We have fixed
but says that
surveillance
shelling
points.
and
We have
gunfire
witnesses that
continued
were up
over the weekend,
with their
with
phones. We
21
have
people
a
reportedly
lot of
killed and
different
96
data
injured
that
yesterday.
all
That's what the
concluded
Ministry
where
of
this
Health in
fire
Gaza is
started
telling
and the
us.
fire behavior from that
Humanitarian
origin,
access and movement
from
across
that
the Strip
Lockman fire,
remains challenging.
was clearly established
Yesterday,
in the
8 missions that
Palisades
were
fire.
required coordination with the Israeli authorities were facilitated, but 6 other missions were denied and 5 had to be canceled by the organizers. In Deir el-Bala and Khan
He dropped
Yunis, the World
passengers
Food
off within the
Program was able to
residential area
deliver
of that
wheat
area.
flour to bakeries this month, making it easier for families to put bread on their tables. Bakeries are currently working up to 22 hours a day, producing
So right
some
now, we
100,000
charged them on a criminal complaint.
bundles of
We have not
bread
determined
daily.
all the charges he's
Saturday,
going
our
to face. We'll be
humanitarian
presenting that
partners
evidence to a
prepared and
grand jury.
distributed a total of
We will make decisions
885,000
about
meals
additional
to
charges at that time.
167
So
kitchens
this
across
is right now
Gaza.
just a criminal
However,
complaint.
only 12
We
kitchens
wanted to arrest
operating
him.
in
We
the
wanted to
north.
get him into custody.
We and our partners stress the need for unimpeded and
this will
sustained
go to a grand
access
jury
to all
shortly.
parts of Gaza so that aid can reach people wherever they are. In Al Nasser Medical Complex in Khan Yunis, the Ministry of Health reported that 3 babies are sharing one incubator,
Yeah, I'm not going to
raising
comment on
the
that.
risk
He
of
did go back the same
contracting
night.
infections
So
and
the night he
disease.
started the
Meanwhile,
fire,
aid workers on the
he
ground are
left.
doing everything
As soon as he saw
possible
the fire
to serve
trucks
large
were
number
headed to the
of people
location, he
coming
turned around
from
and
the
went
north
back up
to
there.
the south.
And
Our
he took some
partners
video
providing
and
nutrition
watched
support
them
have
fight the
increased
fire.
the number of service
Last
points
question.
that they're operating in the south from 96 to 118 last week.
No, he
However,
is
displacement
charged
sites
with
and shelters in
starting
the
a
south
fire
are
on January
overcrowded.
1st,
They're driving
which
some families
is the
to
fire
stay at garbage
that burned
dumping
down the
sites such as
Palisades.
Al Amal.
It
where
did
some
take a week
70
to
tents have been set up
reignite,
over the
but
past
he
few
is
days.
charged with starting the
Others are
Palisades
attempting to
fire.
return
He started
to
it
the
on
north
January
despite
1st.
Gaza City being declared a dangerous combat zone with no movement towards the north allowed. OCHA stresses that
This
despite these immense
complaint
challenges,
covers
we and our
that
humanitarian
fire
partners are
and the
continuing
damages
to
and
do whatever
deaths
we
that were
can
caused
to
by
meet
that
people's
fire.
urgent
As far
needs
as
across
what
the Strip,
additional charges he will
despite the
face,
ongoing
we will
violence,
make those determinations
limited
in
supplies
the
and
coming
restricted
days.
access.
Thank you all very much.
We, of course, stand ready to deliver at scale as soon as the situation allows it. And turning to Sudan and the worsening humanitarian situation there, especially in and around the besieged capital of Al-Fashir in North Darfur. Our humanitarian colleagues tell us the fighting there continues to force more people to leave their homes. An international organization for migration estimates that between the 2nd and 4th of October, some 770 people were displaced from the city due to heightened insecurity. They reportedly sought shelter in gathering sites in Tawila in North Darfur. As you may recall, Denise Brown, our humanitarian coordinator, briefed you from Tawila on Friday. We and our partners stand ready to deliver assistance once access to Al-Fashir is granted. At the same time, we continue to press for increased UN presence on the ground in North Darfur and all areas in need. In response to the deepening crisis, the World Food Program says it has reached some 250,000 people in Al-Fashir with monthly cash transfers since the start of the year. And in other parts of Darfur, WFP has scaled up its emergency food and nutrition assistance. The agency reports that nearly 2 million people across Darfur received food and nutrition assistance in August, including in areas where famine has been confirmed or where the risk of famine is high. This number accounts for roughly half of the 4.2 million people received WFP support across Sudan, as the agency prioritizes areas across facing the most extreme level of hunger. We once again call for the lifting of the siege of Al-Fashir. Civilians must be protected, and those fleeing or afforded passage must also be protected. Unimpeded humanitarian access must be facilitated to reach hundreds of thousands of civilians who've been trapped in the city for over 500 days. Quick update from the Central African Republic, where peacekeepers said that following recent clashes in Dafok, a border town in the country's northeast near Sudan, the head of the mission, Valentine Rugwabiza, conducted a field visit to assess the deteriorating situation there. During her visit, Ms. Rugwabiza met with local authorities and community leaders, including at a site hosting some 11,000 displaced people. She did so to reiterate our commitment to supporting durable solutions to their challenges. She commended the community's resilience and reaffirmed the mission's continued efforts to strengthen security, protect civilians, support local peace initiatives, and facilitate humanitarian assistance while fostering cross-border dialogue to prevent further escalations. And in nearby Democratic Republic of the Congo, peacekeeping mission there has condemned the resurgence of violence we saw last week in Jugu territory, which is in Ituri province. UN peacekeepers have reinforced their presence there by intensifying patrols and coordinating closely with the Congolese armed forces to protect civilians and impacted areas. As we mentioned last week, there were clashes between the members of Codeco and Zaire armed groups about 15 kilometers southeast of Jugu. Gunfire attributed to unidentified armed men was also reported in Jina. This led to the displacement of approximately 2,500 civilians who sought refuge at the peacekeeping base in that area. Our colleagues in the mission said they're deeply concerned by these acts of violence. They also condemned the militarization of sites for displaced people and reiterated their determination to work alongside Congolese authorities and local communities to prevent further attacks, protect the most vulnerable, reduce tensions, and support the stabilization of areas affected by violence. And a quick update from Ukraine, where colleagues tell us that attacks across the country over the weekend struck a large urban centers and damaged critical civilian infrastructure, disrupting power supplies for the season begins. According to authorities, between the 4th and the 6th of October, more than a dozen civilians were killed and over 100 were injured. Zaporizhzhia city and the Lviv region in particular impacted. Our humanitarian coordinator to a shower condemned the recent wave of attacks by the forces of the Russian Federation, which continue to impact critical civilian services. Aid organizations provide emergency assistance after attacks, including first aid and various other support. Finally, OCHA tells us that last Friday, we and our humanitarian partners delivered the first humanitarian convoy to the Dnipropetrovsk region this year, providing medical supplies. Today is World Habitat Day. On this day, the Secretary General said that we shine a light on solutions for better housing.
Good morning,
land rights,
everybody.
water,
Good morning.
and sanitation.
We're about
We
to
also
get started in
recognize the
about
vital
5
leadership
minutes,
of mayors
and there's a
and
lot
local
of people here, so if you
governments
could
and the
start
resilience
making
of
your way
urban
to the table,
communities,
I'd
especially
appreciate it.
with
Thank you.
Youth. We got some money today. This year we received payments from Equatorial Guinea, Papua New Guinea, and Guinea-Bissau. Who paid us today? This year we received payments from Papua New Guinea, Equatorial Guinea, and Guinea-Bissau. Who paid today? Yes, Benny Avni. Thank you for the win. Yeah. Okay. I don't know. Anyway, we say thank you to our friends in Conakry, and we are now up to 139 paid up member states. Benny, if you have a question, you have the right to ask first. If you use a microphone, I'll listen.
Right. So last week, you weren't here.
That's a good start.
Your current problem was the siege for the flotilla stoppage, which you didn't. But, you know, there's one body that addressed that issue back in 2011. That body is called the United Nations, in the Palmer Committee, and it declared that Israel's block of Gaza is legal, and that it has the right to stop such flotillas. It urged Israel also to do it in a non-violent way, all of which happened today. So why is it so difficult to say, yes, it is legal to stop the flotilla?
Benny, you and I weren't here. I also addressed this Friday and Thursday when I was here, but you weren't here. So I would urge you to check the transcript. I have no other words to add other ones that both Fahan and I said.
Is it legal or not? So,
But I would refer you to the questions already
is
asked.
it legal or not?
I would
According to
urge
the
you to check the transcript, and I really have no further words to add. Michelle.
Thanks, Steph. Just on the talks that are happening in Cairo, is there anyone from the UN sort of there on the sidelines to offer any guidance on aid access aid, or is it just a matter of once they have a deal, we'll get it done?
We've been in touch. We're aware is we continue to stay in touch with the mediators. We're of course ready to scale up aid as soon as we can. No, we're just in touch. Edie.
Following up on that, has the United Nations actually made preparations to do an immediate surge of aid into Gaza in the event of an agreement in the coming hours or days?
I mean, we've been ready, and the machinery is cranked up and ready to go as soon as we get the green light. Lenka, then Deji.
Thank you, Steph. On Sunday, President Donald Trump said that he thinks it's a good idea, the offer of Russian President Putin to extend compliance with nuclear limits under the New START treaty. Does the UN welcome such statements since it's coming from Russia and from the United States now? And what is your view on extending this treaty? Thank you.
We welcome any and all efforts towards the controlling of the limiting of nuclear arsenal. The Secretary General has been very clear that we want to see we're free of nuclear weapons, but there are very important agreements in place, and we want them to be supported. Deji.
Yes, Steph, just one question. It will soon be the 2 years mark from the October 7th attack. What is the Secretary General's message to this Green Day?
I mean, I think we will first of all issue a statement shortly on that, which we will see. The Secretary General recalls with much pain the devastation in Israel due to the terror attacks by Hamas and others on 7th of October 2 years ago. We have seen in ensuing time devastation to civilians. We now have there is a window that has been presented, and we want that window to be that opportunity to be seized to bring an end to this conflict. Madam.
Thank you, Steph. Ceasefire agreement potentially. Again, can you just clarify a little bit about what the status of UNRWA is in terms of how much, who's funding it, how many people are still working, and if the UN envisages UNRWA playing a future role?
UNRWA has a mandate given to it by the General Assembly of this organization. It will continue its work. It is also continuing its work in the occupied Palestinian territory. It's continuing its work in Lebanon, Jordan, and in Syria. As for the exact funding, continues to be a great challenge to UNRWA. We continue to encourage the member states to fund the organization, but UNRWA can give you a bit more details.
You would suggest they'll continue to work?
They have a mandate given to them. Yes, exactly. I think the role would be obviously everything we need to be adapted, but they have a mandate and they continue to promote that mandate. Yvonne.
When you say that you've cranked up ready to go once you've got the green light, what do you mean?
I mean, there are many, there are thousands of metric tons in the pipeline of goods ready to enter, whether they're in the port of Ashdod, whether they're in Jordan, and other places. And as soon as the crossings become
Good
open,
morning, everybody.
we're ready
Good morning.
to move those trucks.
So you mean they're waiting on the border
So we've
of
got
Gaza, effectively.
most of
ready
our
to go.
candidates here
There-
today,
it's-
and we're going to
the
get started.
pipeline
So please grab a
is
seat.
In Cyprus, at the port of Ashdod, in Jordan. I don't know exactly what the number of trucks waiting at the crossing points on the Israeli side. But I can tell you that the machinery and the pipeline are large. As well. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Stefan. One question on Syria. Syria's interim president issued a new decree on Sunday outlining the nation's official federal holidays,
Good
the nation's
morning.
holidays after
Thank
Assad.
you so much for being
There's,
here
however,
today. Good
one
morning.
notable omission, Nowruz,
I'm Fred Gabriel,
which is
the
the most
publisher and
important
executive
cultural
editor of Crane's
celebration
New York
for the
Business.
Kurds, the second largest
And on
ethnic
behalf
group,
of our
and they
entire
have
team,
condemned this
welcome
as a
and thank you
continuation of
for joining us for this
Ba'athist
special
era policies.
mayoral business
Is this a
forum.
concerning development for the Secretary General?
I hadn't seen that decree. I will get
Thank you
back
for
to you
the
on that.
applause.
Obviously, I
But
think as
before we
we've said
dive in,
repeatedly, it is important.
I want to take a moment to acknowledge all of you in this
the
room.
authorities
The
in Damascus,
executives,
for the,
the
government,
entrepreneurs,
to
the
ensure
civic
that
leaders,
every
and the change makers
Syrian,
who really
regardless
drive
of their
this
religion,
city
their
forward.
ethnicity, feels included in
You
the
are
future
the
of their
engine
country.
of New York's economy.
Madam.
And you're building businesses and creating
Just to follow up on
jobs
this,
and
Lutullah,
investing
I
in our
mean,
communities.
many of the activists
And your
that were
voice
detained
matters,
in
and it
international
matters here.
waters have been released, and
So let
they
me
have
be
been
clear.
recounting
This
accounts
is a
of
forum, not a debate.
grave
It's a rare
mistreatment by
opportunity
the
for
Israeli
the leading candidates
forces.
for mayor to speak directly to
We've
you,
seen videos actually
to share
of
their
Minister
vision for the city's
Ben Gvir
future,
actually yelling at them and calling them
and to
terrorists.
share their
and
ideas for
they are
how we go
clearly
forward.
Civilian activists.
More
Do you have a
importantly,
comment on that?
I mean, I
to
think we've
explain to
seen
you
these
how they
reports,
plan
and
to earn
frankly,
your
they are
trust and
disturbing.
your support.
We are.
So here's how today
we
will
see
unfold.
all of them, all of the people detained
Each
and
candidate
repatriated
will
as
take
quickly
the
as possible
stage
to
one
their
at a
home
time,
countries.
beginning with 8 minutes of prepared remarks.
An
Then I'll
investigation
be
should
joined by my
be set
colleague
up
Nick
in.
Garber,
I mean,
our political reporter,
we've
for
heard
a
how
30-minute
Palestinian prisoners have
conversation
been
with that
treated,
candidate.
and now we've seen activists
Many
where,
of the
I mean, some of them are saying that the
whenever there are
passports did not
reports
protect them.
of
from you.
mistreatment and ill treatment, these
Our
things need to be
newsroom
investigated.
for the last 2
Alex.
weeks has been talking to leaders, business leaders, all across the 5
Thanks,
boroughs to
Another
collect
question on
the
Syria.
most
Do
pressing,
you have any comments on the
practical,
elections?
and provocative questions.
Yes.
We won't
on
be
the
taking
election,
questions
I
from
can
the
tell you
floor,
that
but make no mistake,
our special
this
envoy's
room
office taken note
shaped today's
of
agenda.
the indirect elections that
Every
were held
candidate will
yesterday.
get the same amount of time, and we'll be
We
keeping
will
them
obviously follow
honest
the
with a
developments
visible time
regarding the
cue from
announcement of
stage.
official results and the
And rest
presidential
assured,
appointment
Nick and
for the
I won't
remaining
be shy
seats
about moving the
in the
conversation
assembly.
forward so
To
we
be
can get to
clear,
more
the
questions.
office of the special envoy or the
Before
UN
we
writ
start,
large
I'd like
was
to just
not
step back and
involved
talk about why this
in the
matters.
electoral process. There was no request
Well, it
to
matters
us for
because
any
New York City
electoral
is at a
assistance.
crossroads.
That being said, the
Our city
establishment of
faces
an
challenges
interim
in
body
public
and
safety,
interim
housing, job
legislature is an
creation,
important
and
step
fiscal
in
stability.
addressing the urgent
These
legal
aren't
and
just
institutional
government
priorities
issues.
during the
They're
transitional
business
period.
issues.
Our special envoy's
Today is
office
about
underscores
clarity.
the importance of
It's
ensuring
about
that the work of the
accountability.
People's Assembly
It's
during
about
transition is
answering
conducted
one
in a
big
transparent,
question.
in an
Who is
open,
ready to
and an
lead New York
inclusive
forward
manner.
with the
The electoral
business
process
community,
demonstrated
not
that
without the business
substantial
community.
efforts are still needed to
So,
ensure
let's
opportunities
get
for the
started.
meaningful political participation
Please join me
by
in
women
welcoming
and
our
all
first
components
speaker,
of Syrian
Assemblymember
society.
Zoran Mamdani.
Before I go back to you, Benny, any online questions?
Mr. Mamdani has represented Astoria,
Go ahead,
Queens in the New
Abdullah.
York State Assembly since
Yeah, I have a
2021.
follow-up to
He
Bisan's
was born in
question
Uganda,
about the treatment
raised here in New
of,
York, and has focused his
Greta
work on
Guttenberg.
housing,
She was
affordability, and
forced
transit
to kiss the
issues.
Israeli flag,
Please
and she
welcome
was,
Assemblyman
also
Zoran
roughed up
Mamdani.
by the
So you
Israeli
applied for a new
security
job
guard.
and
You're
you
aware
got the
of this,
interview. Now you got
As
to
I-
nail
as
it.
I
I told the
mentioned,
acrobat
we've
AI
seen some
assistant
of
can
these
act as a
reports,
practice
which
partner
are
so you
rather
can feel
disturbing, to
confident
say
and
the
prepared.
least.
Just use
Your next
Adobe
question.
Acrobat
My
Pro
sec-
and AI
my
Assistant
second
on your
question
resume
about
and ask it to generate potential interview
everyone
questions so
welcomed
you can
this,
think about what you're going to
proposal
say
by
before the
President
big day.
Trump, which
Isn't that a
starts
cool
with
way to
ceasefire.
practice? Start your free
And it
7-day
has been
trial
like
now.
since Friday, today is Monday, and there is no ceasefire. Who's in in violation of this agreement?
Wow, you finally
why
replied to a
people do not
text message from
against
3
that
weeks ago.
violation?
Well, I
You
can't
deserve the
speak
sweet
for
and tangy
anyone but the
reward of a new
Secretary General,
prickly
so why
pear
people don't
raspberry
speak,
Whataburger
I don't
from
know.
Whataburger.
But I
Thumbs up
can, my
emoji.
understanding, and I think everybody's understanding, is that there are intense discussions going on hosted by Egypt, obviously supported by the other mediators, Qatar and the United States, and we very much hope that there's positive outcome of those discussions. Benny.
Two quick questions. First, you spoke before about the crossings.
Good morning, everyone.
As far as you know, is the Allenby crossing already open?
Such a pleasure to be here
I
in
haven't
this
seen
room.
any update on allowing
And I want
cargo
to say first,
to go
thank
through,
you
but
to
obviously
Cranes
that would
for
be a
bringing us all
critical,
together,
that
and
is
I'm
a
grateful for
critical
the
choke
opportunity
point
to share
for
my
cargo,
vision
humanitarian cargo
for the
coming in.
city.
And is the security
I am looking forward to
problems
speaking
there
about
addressed?
the necessity
we don't
of
run the
building
security
a
of the
fairer
Allenby
and
Bridge.
more affordable city across the five boroughs.
Okay,
and I'm
never
excited
mind.
at the opportunity to do so
Second question about
with many
Syria.
in this room, some of whom I've had the
Is it the
pleasure
assessment
of
of the
meeting prior
Secretary
to today, and
General
some of whom for this is the
the
first time.
rights of
I know
various,
that when many in the business community envisioned their dream candidate for mayor, it may not have been me on this stage.
ethnic groups are being
And
addressed in this new
nevertheless,
structure.
I am excited at this opportunity
You know,
because I
it
actually
is
think that
clear
there's far
to
more
the naked
commonality
eye
than is often
that there are a
discussed
lot of
in the
challenges
visions for
currently
this
in
city.
Syria, including with
know,
some of the minority
Many of the questions I've
populations.
heard are questions of
This
whether
was raised
the ambition
the
of this
issue
agenda
of inclusivity and the need
outstrips
for
the possibility
the government
of this moment.
to deal with those
Whether
issues
it
in a
goes
constructive
beyond
way
what
was
is
raised
feasible,
by the Secretary
whether
General in
fiscally or
his meeting
politically.
with Mr. Al-Shara. It is
I think that
obviously
these are important
a
questions
situation
to reckon
that
with,
the
important
government
questions to answer.
needs to deal with. And
And I
said,
also
as
know
I keep
that in
saying
standing
here, we
here
want things to be done
in
in
front of a
inclusive
room
manner.
of business leaders
Of
in the business
course you may,
capital
Yvonne.
of the world,
On a different
that if
topic,
anyone
you
knows that
talked about
success is not
Sudan
inevitable, it
earlier
is those in this
and
room.
the WFP operation.
And there's a quote
ready
that comes to
you
mind
said to
from all people,
step in as soon
Jeff
as they're
Bezos,
allowed to. But
a man whose
is the
tax
WFP
burden I would love
operation
to
being
significantly
affected by
raise.
the cuts that it's experienced over the past few months?
Jeff
I mean,
once
does
said,
it have the resources to
not to
carry
me
out this?
personally,
So
but in public.
as you know,
You
our
have to be
humanitarian
willing to be
appeals
misunderstood
are kind of siloed.
if you're going to
right?
innovate.
So, and the
And make no
most
mistake,
of the
my
money is not
friends,
fungible. From what
when
I
I am
recall,
mayor, this
Denise
city
Brown
is going to
saying is that the Sudan humanitarian appeal was
It's a
one of
city where we see the term
the better
impossible often
underfunded
thrown
appeals.
as a
They're all
gauntlet at our
underfunded,
feet,
but they seem to have
where you are only as
resources.
impressive
there are
as
other
what you achieved
places
yesterday.
where WFP has had to do drastic
And that
cuts
culture of greatness and the understanding that it has to be relentlessly earned
in
is
the
something
food
that has long
distribution,
animated
in the
the
rations.
private
yeah.
sector.
Okay.
We see it in a
any other
finance sector
questions
that's the
online,
envy of the
offline,
world. We see it
in the air,
in
anywhere?
an arts
Goodbye.
industry that sets the example for creatives in every time zone. We see it in a tech industry that is increasingly headquartered across every single one of the five boroughs. And yet, while there have been moments of incredible achievement, namely the realization of universal pre-K, greatness and this same spirit that I described with the private sector has for far too long eluded us in the public sector. When New Yorkers look to City Hall, they have come to expect indictments, not inspiration. They have come
Build
to
a website you love
corruption
with Wix.
not competence.
For your words,
And to be clear, this is not
create
simply a
your
reflection of
brand,
the current administration, but
your
an ethos
opportunity,
that has lived for
your
far too long.
breakthrough.
And what I want to bring to our
Wix.
political arena
My girlfriend was right.
is an end
My razor gave
to
me cuts,
the very specific
irritated my
style of
skin, and
exceptionalism we have
still
seen thrive in our
left a
politics.
patchy shave.
Where we have told
She made
ourselves
me
that that
switch to
which
the
works
Skull
elsewhere
Shaver
could never
Pitbull
work here.
GX5.
And
Now I
while
love
it
her.
is spoken of in a
Shaver.
language of a belief in the unique nature of this city, what it has
It
actually come
glides
to
on your head.
represent
The
is a
blades are flexible
justification
and
for
hypoallergenic.
mediocrity.
No nicks, no
complacency.
cuts. Get a quick,
for
clean
things
shave in just
being as
90
they have always
seconds.
been.
You need to try this shaver today.
And to
Go
bring
shop
that
now at
reinvention
skullshaver.com.
to our
Doesn't
political
sound
arena
good,
to
but
insist
Washington was
upon
the most
same
dangerous
level
place
of excellence
in this
from
country, and now, you
ourselves
know
in the
what? It's
public
probably the
sector
safest place in
as
our
we
country.
do
Everyone's starting to come
from
here.
Broadway
The restaurants
stars or
now you
whoever's running
can't
the
get in.
board at
Many of them
MSG.
closed because they couldn't open.
means
with
understanding
Everybody before me is
both
happy
the
what I'm doing.
possibility,
Most
but
of you
also
won't
more
say that
importantly,
because
the
you're
opportunity
radical
in front of
left.
us and the
The
responsibility we have to
newspapers are so
grasp.
dishonest. The press is totally dishonest, but
I
that's
say
all
this
right. We've
knowing
gotten
that
used
there
to
are
it,
an immense
and we won
number
an
of
landslide.
incredibly
So they
gifted
obviously
public
lost their
servants
power. I
in
mean,
our
it's
city
impossible to
who have
imagine
great ideas
that when
and a
you get
real love for
97%
What they are
negative
waiting for,
stories,
however, is an
purposely negative
administration
stories,
that
even
is
though
looking
you've
to
done
harness that
97%
potential into
positive
the
things,
results that New Yorkers have
that they could
that you could win an election in a landslide, winning all 7.
About a Muhammad Ali quote.
Think of it, all
Now
7
we
swing
think of more
states
often
winning
as an
by
Adidas ad
the
campaign.
popular vote by millions of votes.
Which I've always loved.
We
Just
had it
impossible is
fantastic.
nothing.
The best this year
To embody
districts
those
out
words,
of
you have to be fearless. You have to be
3,000
daring.
districts. I guess we won.
You have to be ambitious to an extent that from the
2,500. We
outside
won
may defy logic.
2,750.
And we measure that
And they won
ambition in an
500.
agenda that meets
And that's, to
this
me, the best of all. And
An
we had
agenda
tremendous in every way,
that
the election. And
understands
it's hard
the
to believe you can do
importance
that
of
when you have a
prioritizing
corrupt media.
the affordability
But
challenges
you
of
are,
the
many of you
8.5
are
million
corrupt,
people
and
who
there's
call this
nothing we
city
can do
home.
about it.
Home
But we keep
that has
winning,
now
and we're
become
going to
the
keep
most
winning.
expensive city in
And
the
this
United
whole
States of
story
America.
on crime is incredible that the
And what this
Democrats wouldn't
policy
be with us.
platform is that I have been running
So
on
the
is a
mayor of
reflection
Chicago,
of
I
the
watched him this
conversations
morning.
I've
He
had
said,
with New Yorkers
Trump
across
doesn't
these
know
5
what he's
boroughs.
talking about. He only
Conversations that have come back
apprehended 9
to
people.
the most
Well,
pressing costs
number
to
one,
these
that's
New Yorkers'
false.
lives being those of
Literally,
housing,
it's thousands to
childcare,
get into that.
public
But
transit,
more importantly than anything, we
groceries.
took guns away. We have
sorry,
some
the
of the
Con Ed
worst
may have cut some of the
career professionals out of the country already.
Because I forgot to
They've been
mention
taken out of the
utilities.
country, and some are in solid confinement because these were killers. We arrested
And
some very bad people.
oftentimes
And in the
when I
last
speak
11
about an
days,
affordability
again,
agenda,
I hate to
it's
say it
spoken of
because it
as
sounds
if
so
it is only a
ridiculous.
reflection of the
But
needs
in the
of
last 11
working
days,
class
we've had no murders.
Yet, however,
And
when
that's
I
the
have
first
spoken
time
to
that's
business
taken
leaders,
place
I've also
in
heard the impact
years.
that this
Actually, years.
lack of
We always
affordability
have a
is having
murder a
on the
week. They
ability
call it
to
a
not only
murder a
start
week.
a
You come
business
here
here
from
in this city,
Iowa, you come
but
here
to
from
sustain
Indiana,
that
you
very
come here from
business. The ways
Idaho.
in which it is demanding
Because you're so proud of your
businesses
country,
pay
you
for
love
the
your
failures
country,
of
and
the
then you
private
get
sector
murdered,
by
your son
having
gets
to add
murdered, your daughter
premiums
gets
and
murdered,
salaries that
you
are
get
offered,
murdered,
or
see the
stipends
media, you get
perhaps for
murdered.
the very
Many of you
kinds
have been
of
mugged
things
in
that city
Washington, you
government
just don't
could
want to
be
talk
providing,
about
namely
it.
childcare.
And I know that
And I know that
every
as I
time I do
speak,
this
this is
with
a
you,
challenging time
almost for everything,
for the
but
private sector.
every time I do this
We
with
added
you, people
fewer
are
than
saying to
1,000
yourselves, he's right,
private
he's
sector
right, and then you write a
jobs
negative
in the
story.
first half of this year.
But we are doing an incredible
24
job. The
tech
people behind
companies
me
in
are
our city
amazing.
have laid off workers
We're
this year,
working
part
very
of a
well
national
with the
trend,
Washington police, as you
which
know.
has seen
The DC National Guard is
150,000 tech
unbelievable.
jobs cut
We're
across
also getting tremendous help from
549
Secret
companies
Service.
just last year alone.
And
so what I want
we
my
are
policies to do
at
is
a
not only
point
to
where
make it
Washington
easier for
is
working
booming
people to
again.
afford this
People are
city,
pouring in.
but also to ensure
Like we haven't seen for
that
years.
businesses
Nobody
are able
wanted to come here.
attract
They didn't want to
top
come here
talent
and
to this
get murdered. I have a friend of
And I'm
mine who
eager for the
is a
relationship
very
between the
successful
public
son.
sector
And
the
I said,
private
where
sector
is your son
to be more of
going to
a
be this
partnership than
weekend?
it ever has before.
He said he's going to Washington
And
with
I'm
his friends. I
particularly
said,
eager to
really?
find
Yeah,
these
he's wanted
places
to
of
do it for 4
collaboration
years,
to
but he
bring
couldn't do it because it
new
was
life
so
to this
unsafe.
moment.
And he's a tough kid, too. It's so unsafe. And he
By
ended up staying and staying
understanding
3 nights, going out to restaurants all 3
that
nights. He
our
said it
city
was so
can
beautiful,
boast
so peaceful. Because all the criminals are
smartest
either
and most
arrested or
capable
they're hiding.
talents in
And
the
we're
world.
finding the ones that are hiding.
And the more that I can
So I
bring
want to
that
thank Pam
expertise
Bondi.
that
I
already
want to thank our
exists here
vice
and that we
president. I
can
want to thank
have
everybody
join us.
standing behind me.
Bring
Because
that
they are
competence, that
really,
expertise from the
Gaddy, you've been
boardrooms to
unbelievable,
City
by the
Hall,
way.
the better our city will be.
They have
And
done
the
an
more
unbelievable job. They're working
interconnected our
24 hours a
agendas
day.
will be.
And Washington, D.C.
And I
is
also
now in
know
great shape. I'm
that
going to
part
be
of the
working
reason
with Clark
so
Construction,
many
which is by
believe
far
in the
your biggest
necessity
construction
of
company.
significant investment
And we're going to also
in
beautify
public goods across
Washington.
the
We're going to
city
rip down the broken medians,
is the
fix them. We're
parallel
going
that
to
at times
put
of great
asphalt on the
investment in
roads.
those
We're
very
not ripping
goods,
them
we can
apart like
also
these
see
stupid people do. They rip a
incredible
road.
growth
They
within
rip
the
a
private
road
sector.
down to the dirt.
And I think often
And
about
then
the
they
10
spend 5 years in
of
building the new one,
2009 to
and then it starts
2019
settling. You know,
of
the
how
whole
we
thing
saw
is
our
so
city
crazy.
able to
And
outstrip
they'll spend
the
hundreds
projections that
of
were made and to
millions
outstrip
of
the
dollars
growth
on
that
a
was seen at
road.
the
I'll
state
spend
level and
about
at the national level.
$2,
And part of this
and it'll look better.
is an indication
So we're going to be
of what we
replacing
could achieve
medians. We're
if
going to
we
be
were able to
replacing
work together.
much
We were
of the
able to deliver
asphalt in the
relief
road,
that
which
New
in
Yorkers need
the
at every single
city,
level,
which is in
ensuring
bad shape.
that
we have
work
great
hand in hand
stripers.
with
We have
the
great
private sector
contractors.
so that
But we have to let them
working
do the
people
thing. The Congress
thriving
has said
and
that they'll
business is thriving
give
are not
us
seen as mutually
whatever
exclusive.
money
In
is
fact,
needed
they
to
are
fix up
part
the
of
Capitol,
one and
the
the
city
same vision,
Capitol.
the same city.
And we're not going to spend a
And I
lot.
will
It's
end
going to go
with this,
fast, and it will be
that when
spotless.
J.G. Crane
And we want it spotless for
founded
the World Cup and
advertising
for the
age in
Olympics.
1930,
You saw the World
it was
Cup
the
was here
dawn
the
of the
other
Great
day.
Depression.
And
The idea
come
of
to think
starting
of
a
it,
new
there's your
business
trophy for the
may
World
have
Cup.
seemed like a
In fact,
folly.
it's solid gold. That's actually
And yet
solid gold, so
95 years
heavy
later,
that some of the people in
ad
this
age
room wouldn't be
remains
able
the
to
pace
lift it up.
setter.
I
And
think
it's
what
the-
I'm going to do is place it right above
If we
the angel,
limit
right over there.
ourselves
That's solid gold.
to the
too. We're
realm
gonna
of
put
what
it
seems
right up
possible
there.
only
Look
in
at
that moment,
There's a solid
the
gold
greatness
trophy.
that lives within
They know how to
impossibility
get to
will be
me.
forever
Yeah.
out. So
I
thank
like the
you
angel
for having
better,
me.
to be
I'm
honest
looking
with you.
forward to this conversation.
So,
it's a pleasure.
we're going to start aside, and then we'll take a few questions, and we'll tell you how good a job we're doing. And we want to go from here to other places. But I was telling some of the people that in a certain way, you really want to be asked to go.
Let's go, guys.
You know, I hate to barge in on a city and then be treated horribly by corrupt politicians and bad politicians, like a guy like Pritzker. He ought to spend more time in the gym, actually.
We got here first. We did it.
This guy is a disaster. Gavin Newsom's a disaster. When we went, we saved Los Angeles. You wouldn't have been able to have the Olympics in Los Angeles. You're barely able to have it now. They did lose 25,000 houses to a fire that should have never occurred because they didn't let the water come down from the Pacific Northwest, which you guys don't want to write about. I had to break into the water supply to let the water down. And even now, we want more. We can have much more. It's less than half of what should be coming in. I don't know, they have a political thing about it. It's like the craziest thing I've ever seen. But I don't like going to a town,
a minute
city,
over, but I do
place,
appreciate
state,
the ad age reference.
and then
so
be
we
criticized
let
by
you
some
do
corrupt
that.
or incompetent
final
governor
second call if I
where
took
crime
the
is
time
rampant.
or-
Like, take a look at D.C. Crime was rampant.
Thank you for being here.
It was at the all-time worst.
I know that
It
you
got
know
really
Nick,
bad during
a
the Biden
constituent.
4 years.
So,
And then I have a
we'll get
mayor
started.
stand up and say how
Nick, I
crime
think
has
you-
reached a
I got
30-year
the
low.
first question.
30-year low.
Thanks, Assemblymember,
People
for
are being
being here.
killed left and
We're
right.
going to start with some housing
And it's not a
questions
30-year
on
low.
your
Think of it.
proposed rent freeze.
So for 11 days, there's been no
This room
murders.
probably knows you've proposed
The record goes back
freezing the rent
years
on all stabilized
where
units
that's
for 4
happened.
years.
They haven't
You've
seen that
proposed
happen
doing
in
that
years. And
before
then
the Rent
people
Guidelines
stand up,
Board
and
has
instead of
collected any
thanking
data,
us,
though,
which they
on
should do,
landlords' costs.
and she's
Doesn't
not that bad.
conflict with the law
She's
and
better than
potentially open
most.
up your plan
You
to
know,
legal
you have
challenges?
people I watched in
First, I do
Illinois,
have to share a
Chicago,
story.
Illinois is a
I knew
disaster.
that
I
Nick
have
was a
property
reporter.
there.
I
It's a
didn't know that he was a
disaster.
constituent until one day I
What's
knocked on
going
his
on in
door and
Chicago?
found him on the other side.
And you
of it.
get Pritzker because he's violating
I was asking if he needed any
rights.
help from my district office in
I think
Astoria.
this is another men and women's sports.
I've spoken, yes,
thing. I
of
think
a
this is
4-year
one of
rent freeze
those,
for rent stabilized
they
tenants.
call
This
them 80,
would
20 issues.
mean
I call them
rent
97,
freeze
3.
for about 2.5 million New Yorkers.
I think the Democrats better
I've
get
said
smart.
this
And, you know,
out of a
politically, I hope they
reflection
don't.
of
But
the
actually,
chasm
in
that we've
terms of
seen
love for the
opening up
country, I hope
between
they
the
do. Because
continued increase in profits
it will be
for the
good to work
landlords of these
together.
units.
So I'm
amidst
thinking
the
about,
stagnation
you know, when
of
I
the
have
median
some
salary
slob
of
like Pritzker
tenants of
criticizing
business.
us
The
before
median
we even
household
go there, I
income
made
being
the
about
statement that next should be
$60,000.
Chicago.
And
'cause
we've seen
as you all know,
oftentimes
Chicago's a
that the
killing
Rent
field
Guidelines
right now.
Board will conduct
And
their
they don't
studies as they
acknowledge
should,
it.
and they will find
And
these
they say, we
statistics,
don't
and then the
need
board
freedom,
will take a
freedom.
decision
He's a
that
dictator. He's a
oftentimes
dictator.
conflicts
A lot of people are saying
with those
maybe
same
we
findings.
like a dictator.
And
I don't
it
like
is
a
time for us to
dictator.
follow
I'm not a
these very
dictator.
findings. And
I'm
part
a
of what I'll
man
also
with
just say
great
is
common
that
sense and
the
a smart person.
impetus here
And when I
is to
see
provide
what's
relief
happening to our cities,
to a
and then you
disproportionately
send in
working and
troops,
middle class
instead of being praised,
set of New Yorkers,
they're saying you're trying
it is
to
not,
take
however,
over the
to
republic.
punish the landlords of those units.
these
And
people
the
are
reason I
sick.
create this
But
distinction
I'm really
is
saying,
that
and
to
I
freeze
say
the
this
rent
to
does not also
all of
preclude
you.
you
In
from
a certain way, we
working
should
on the
wait to be
necessity
asked, because they have
of
cities that are
a
so
property
under
tax
control,
reform
out of
agenda
control.
that is
So
currently
we go in and fix
part
it.
of
They
the
take the
reason
full
why it's so
credit for
difficult
it,
to
and they go out
maintain
and
rental
say,
housing
I heard
across
it
the
this
city. It
morning.
does not preclude
They're
you
saying how
from
well
looking at
they've done over
examples
the
like
last
Milford Street Captive,
10-day
where
period
a number
that they
of
set record
landlords
lows.
have come
They don't
together
say
to
they
address
went
one of
there
the
with
highest
tough
rising
people, by the
costs
way. They have to
in
pass the
the
toughness
maintenance of these
test.
buildings, which is affordable
Otherwise,
housing
they're not working
insurance.
for us.
And they've pulled
So,
together
and
their
we're
risk
allowed
to
to
look
do
to
that now,
depress
according
that
to the
cost. It
United
also
States
doesn't
Supreme
preclude
Court
you
decision.
from looking at the
Now, they
ways
have
in
to
which
pass
the
the
city has
toughness
used its
test. If they're
thumb
not
on the
tough, we don't
scale
want them for this
to
job.
support
They might
Con
be great
Edison
for
when
other
they want to
jobs,
increase gas and
but not
electric
for
by
this job.
$65 a month
Because
by
they're respected.
signing a
You
letter
saw
in
the
support
gang
that
of
rate
kids
case,
who
or to increase
were
the
all
water
huddled
bill
up,
to the highest in
and a
13
group of
years.
soldiers walked up. They never even got over.
Great.
Those kids
So,
ran
we
back
have
to
a
their
question
homes or
from
wherever the hell
Ann
they came
Korczak,
from.
Board
They were
President
gone.
of the Small Property
You
Owners
have
of New York.
this is one of the safest
And Ann
cities right
writes,
now in the
"Small
world, as
rental
crazy as that
buildings are
sounds. And
disproportionately
it took
taxed in New York
7
City.
days. It took
Do
really
you
3 days.
support
But we're now in our 11th
comprehensive
day.
property tax reform?
So I want to
And
thank
what
you. So we
specific
had
reforms would you
all of
pursue?
these
Absolutely, I support
things,
comprehensive
439
property tax
illegal
reform, and I say that
alien
as somebody
criminals
who
have
currently
been
sits
removed.
on the Assembly's
And
Property
we
Tax
have
Committee. And
6
someone who
known
has
gang
I've sought
members,
to introduce
some of the
legislation. I've been
worst
told in no
leaders
uncertain certain terms that
of gangs anywhere in
this
the
is an
country,
issue where we are
MS-13 in
waiting for the mayor.
Nicaragua.
It's an issue of such a scale
With two
that
missing children that
there
have
is
been
a question
recovered. They
of
thought
what
they
is
were
a
gone. We
citywide
brought them
vision
back
for
to
it.
the family.
And
The family started crying. They
we've
couldn't
seen
believe that they
this
saw
mayor
their
promised
child
he would
again.
fix it in 100 days.
49 homeless
has not done so. Has sought to
have been
defend the
removed.
same system
Like we
in
have
court,
the head of
has
South
lost many
Korea
a time. The
coming in
previous
in a little
mayor
while, the
had a
president,
commission
and
that released its findings on
he
the final
drives
day
down
of
the
the
street.
administration. I think
Already
there are a
these
number
people
of those
told me, he
findings
said, "What
that
happened?
are
It's so
worth
clean. We always came
pursuing.
in,
I
it was
also think
filthy,
that Martha
dirty, with
Stark has
homeless
done
and
quite an
papers
incredible
all
amount
over
of
the road."
research
That's the other thing.
in the
Those
ways
roads
in
are
which
swept,
the
immaculate,
current system
but they're going to be much better
is unfair
in a few months
in many
when
a
we
different way.
put a
It's
topping on it.
unfair.
They're going to look like they're brand new. We'll get
It's
rid of those
unfair
rusty
in
old
the
medians that have been
different
crashed
burdens it
into 1,000
places on
times,
homeowners in
and they
different
don't
parts of
fix
the
them.
city.
They
It's
just
also unfair
they put
in the
them,
ways
they
in
lay
which
them down on the road and
it
they sit there for
asks
months.
moderately priced
But we don't do that.
co-op
we
and
don't
condo
run things.
owners
We run
to foot a
things like
bill
we run this.
that luxury
we
co-op
like
and
clean,
condo
we
owners
like
by and large
beautiful,
are
we
able
like
to
safe,
pass
and
on.
that's
I
what
think
we're
about
getting.
a property.
So I'll start signing
I think it's a
the executive
220
orders. To me, this is a
Central
very, very
Park.
big deal.
Might have been the most
One of the
expensive property
executive
at one
orders has
point.
to
It
do
sold
with
for about
cashless bail.
$228 million.
That was when the
Because
big
of the
crime
property
in
tax system we
this
have here in
country
New York
started.
City, and the ways in
And
which assessments
I
are
can
made.
tell you who
a
did it,
$228 million
when, but I
property
don't
has
want
been
to do
assessed
that
by the city of
because
New York
others
as having a
followed
value of
pretty
$9.4
quickly.
million.
But that was when it
If we were
happened.
to
Somebody
tax
kills
just that
somebody,
property
they go
by
in,
the
don't worry about
valuation
it,
that
no
it actually
cash,
has,
come
it
back
would
in a
raise
couple
$3
of
million,
months. We'll give you a trial.
which is money
You
we
never
could
see
then
the
give to
person
McKinsey to
again.
design another trash can.
And I
in the
mean,
city.
they kill people and they get out. Cashless bill. They thought it was discriminatory
We
to
shouldn't
make
do
people
that,
put up
but we do.
money because they
To
just
follow
killed
up on
3
the
people lying on the
politics, though, of
street.
property tax reform. One
Any
reason
street,
previous
all over
mayors
the
haven't
country,
succeeded is
cashless
because the
bill.
politics of it
We're
are,
ending it,
you
but
know,
we're
toxic
starting by
in Albany.
ending it in
Why-
There are
DC,
winners and losers.
and that we have the
Right?
right to do
It's-
through federalization. Okay,
a
let's
broken
go.
system
Could I
still has
ask you to
incentives
say
for
exactly what
maintenance.
this is?
Of course.
And I
So,
think
as
that's
you've
the
consistently
importance of
identified, sir,
bringing
cashless
creativity
bail policies
as
are a
both the
key
lens in
driver
which
of
you
the
can
disorder
fix
we
this
see on
system.
city streets all over
And I
America.
think that there have been a number of
Catch and release
proposals that
system allows
can
criminals
make it
to
easier
keep going
with
back
circuit
out on the
breakers
street
also
and
to ensure
reoffending.
that any fix is
What
not
this
one that
executive
then
order does, it
creates a new
charges
level
your
of
attorney
burden on
general
a different
with
class of
identifying
homeowners
jurisdictions all over
or
the country
owners
that
of
have
different sets of
cashless
rental
bail
properties.
policies.
But
and
also,
then
I think it's a question of
withholds or
political will.
revokes federal
Are you
funds
willing
and
to
grants that
have
are
that
flowing to
fight?
those jurisdictions
And
to ensure that we're only supporting
so
the
much
people
of my
who have
campaign
reasonable
has been a
common sense
campaign about
policies
trying to
around
bring
crime.
New
So what
Yorkers who
area
have either
does it
lost
cover?
faith in politics or never had it to
Potentially
begin
anywhere
with
that has a cashless bail
into our
policy, so some of
democracy.
the largest cities,
And
some of
one
the
of
most
the
left-wing
reasons that New
states
Yorkers
in
lose
America.
faith in
all of them,
politics
right?
is
Illinois
because
would be a great example.
the
Yes, sir.
examples
they
they
have
have
great
of city and
cases.
state
Yeah, you don't
government
even
they
have to go
interact
to
with
court
most frequently
sometimes.
are not ones that inspire
Yeah.
confidence.
Illinois, I love
If
that
you're a
state.
homeowner
It's
and
a
you
great
have a
state,
property tax system
but
that
it's run
every
so badly
politician
by
will tell you is
Pritzker.
broken,
They threw him out of the
and yet
family
you keep
business
paying
and he becomes governor.
that property tax at the
Now he
levels
wants
that
to
you've
run
been
for
paying.
president. I don't think
It
that's
begs the
going to
question
happen.
of why should you
Okay,
trust
we'll
anyone
sign right
else's
here,
assessment
right?
of what's broken or whether they'll do anything about it. It's one of the reasons that one of my first focuses in state government was on
So
the
important.
MTA. Was because of the fact that for many
And
New
this
Yorkers,
isn't
this was the most
Republican,
frequent
Democrat.
interaction
This
with
is-
government.
and by the way, most
And so every
Democrats
time there
agree
was a
with
delay,
this. But this
every
is just-
time
we
that you
gotta
could see
bring
the
our country
inefficiency of
back.
that system, it begged the question of why trust the same entity to do anything more than what
Okay.
they're doing right now. And one of my own reflections has been
That's a big one.
that we have
In
made
a
a
world
mistake as
filled
progressives,
with nasal
and I say this
congestion,
personally,
one hero
a frustration
rises.
that we've allowed someone like Elon Musk
Afrin no drip allergy
to
sinus.
make it seem as if
Experience ridiculously
the
powerful
concerns
sinus
of
congestion
fraud and
relief
efficiency
with
and waste,
cooling menthol.
even quality
it
of
works
life, that these are
fast to
somehow
relieve
right-wing
sinus
concerns.
pressure.
These should be at
no
the heart
drips,
of any
no
politics
mess,
for working
just
class
clear,
people. And I think
unblocked
that's
breathing.
part
Plus,
of the
try
remarks
all
I
new
was sharing
Afrin
earlier
Saline
is a
Daily
desire
Care. It's a
to bring
drug-free
that
way to
same level of
instantly clear out
expectation
excessive
of
mucus,
excellence,
allergens, or
of,
irritants.
in many
Afrin,
ways, the
wow is
ROI
real.
of any
Use as
investment we
directed.
make, it has to be at the same
Also, on the
standard
issue
that
of
people are
cashless
holding
bail,
themselves to
sir,
in the
this
private
is a
sector.
DC-specific executive
One more
order.
housing
In
question
addition
for
to the
now.
measures
You
that
said
we're
you've
taking
changed
that
your
are
mind
quite
about
similar
the
to
role
what we're
of
doing
private
around the
development
country.
in solving the housing
DC
crisis.
in
Can you
particular,
describe what
the
led to
objective
that
is holding
change?
as many criminal
And also
defendants
just
in
what is
federal
your current
custody
view
and
of the
subjecting
role
them
of
to
private
federal
housing?
charges as
I
possible.
think that
That
the
means that
private
they'll
sector
be
has an immense
held
role to
pre-trial
play
in federal jail
producing
as opposed to just
the
being cut
level of
back out on
housing
the
supply
streets
that
due
we
to a
desperately
cashless
need
bail
in this city.
policy.
I've often spoken about the fact that New York City is struggling to build
And
4
we have the
homes for
rooms.
every 1,000 people. And
by the way, the
Jersey
prison
City's
they
at
have
7,
in
Tokyo's at 10.
DC is
These are examples that we look at that we cannot disentangle
horrible.
from a vacancy
People
rate
were
that is at a
subjected to live
crisis
in
level.
that dog trap
And I think it will
for
require
so
the
long,
private
so
sector
unfairly.
not only
I have stories you'll be hearing
being
about
a
them.
part
That prison
of
is horrible.
how we actually build out the housing
This
we
is an
need,
executive
but
order
also
that
being
contains a number of
encouraged.
additional
And
measures
I've been
relating
taken
to
aback,
crime and
frankly,
law enforcement
by
in
many of the
Washington,
conversations
D.C.
I've had
It charges,
with
for example,
leaders
your
within New
Secretary
York
of
City real
Defense
estate
with
as
establishing
to how one of the
specialized
largest
units
costs
in
they
both the
face
D.C. National Guard
is
and
the
and
cost of
National
waiting.
Guard units around the
And
country
I think that
specifically
there are
trained and equipped
critically
to deal
important
with public
ways
order
in which
issues.
we have to
It charges
interrogate
all of your
those
various
costs, and
federal
I
law
think even
enforcement
of,
agencies
you look
with hiring
at the
additional
question of
personnel to allow
secret.
them
This is a
to
state law,
surge
right? But it is
personnel
also
to
one that has
Washington, D.C.
profound
to deal with the current
implications at the local
emergency
level.
here.
And
It does a number of other
within
things in that
secret, you are
space, and it
asked to
also
make a 10 to
asks the
15-year
Attorney
prediction of
General
traffic
to
flow
look at
in
D.C.
the area.
Metropolitan Police
There's
general
no way
orders
that is
that have
something you can
currently
actually be
impeded
bound
law
to, given the
enforcement
ways in which
efforts in
traffic
the
is
city,
transforming
and to
itself
potentially look
every
at
single
unwinding
year.
those that are stopping
And
the
you
police
just think
from
about
doing
the
their job
predictions that were made a
effectively.
few
And are we
years
going to
prior to the
ask
influx
this
of
to be
Uber and Lyft into
codified
the
by
city and how that made a
Congress,
mockery
all
of
of
whatever
these
these
things?
predictions
I think
may
we
be.
could potentially, yes, sir.
And yet
I
those are
think
the
we
same
should.
kinds of
I think
predictions
we'll
that are
get
then
it.
used
I think
as the
Democrats
legal
will vote.
framework for a lot of
Well,
lawsuits
it's
against
hard-
these very
it's
kinds
hard
of
to believe
predictions.
that they
So I
might
say
not,
this to
but I
say, if
think
someone believes
Democrats will actually
firmly
vote for
in the
this.
public sector, in regulation, if you don't have a reason for that regulation any longer, then you have to ask yourself what purpose it's serving today.
There's no
let's move
auto
off
pen that can do
this
that.
topic for a
Right?
second.
Look at that, Pam. Is that a good signature?
One of the things I'd like
Seriously,
to bring
is that
up,
a good
and this is
signature?
not news to you.
Who
Critics
can
often
write
cite
like
your
that? Nobody.
a few.
I don't know.
cite
That's the
your-
other
your
thing. I
youth
assume
and
we're
your
looking
lack of
at
governing
the whole
experience.
auto pen
So,
scam.
who from
Because the
business
person
that
that
you
ran
came to your
it said
government
he
have you met with
spoke to
that
him
you could share
briefly
with this
twice
room to
about
reassure
nothing. That
those
means that
skeptics?
all
And
those
with the
pardons that he
election
gave
just weeks away,
to some
can
very
you share
bad
the names
people,
of
very
that you're
unpatriotic people,
considering
very
for key
evil people.
administration roles?
It looks to me like those pardons are worthless.
The first thing I'll say about my
Because
youth is
number
every
one, you
day I
shouldn't
grow
use an
older.
auto pen very specifically.
And I'm only doing
But if you
so
do,
out
it has to be a
of
very good
reflection of
reason.
that concern.
And they have to know
Trying to meet it head on.
that the president wanted it. The president
but I take the
didn't
question
want it.
very seriously because I think
The
what
president
I was
didn't
sharing
know he
there,
was
and I think
alive,
many
okay?
people here in this room
He
know, is
never approved
that
any
we are
of this
only as
stuff.
good as the teams around us.
He wasn't for
And I
open
think
borders
for too
and
long
all
there
the
has
other
been a
things. He was
style
never
of
for open
leadership that
borders.
has
I've known Biden
understood
a long time.
its
He was
work
never
as only being able to be
very
delivered
sharp.
through
But he was never
ever-increasing
in favor
amounts of
of
micromanagement.
open borders
and that
and
is
all
not
the other
actually
things he did to
how you
destroy our
deliver these
country.
kinds of results. I think
Lastly,
often
sir,
of
this is an executive
a
order on
conversation I
flag
had with someone who
burning that
served
charges your
in the
Attorney
Bloomberg
General.
Would you
administration
listen to
told me
this
of a
as an
day where
example?
they made a mistake
Flag
and it was
burning. All over the
across the
country,
news.
they're burning
And
flags.
they got a call from
All over
then
the
Mayor
world, they burn the
Bloomberg,
American
and
flag.
his words were, "Do
And
it again."
as you know,
And it was
to a very
this belief
sad court,
that you still
I guess
have
it
my
was a
backing.
5-4 decision.
We both know
They
you made a
called it
mistake,
freedom of
and you
speech,
still
but
have more
there's
work
another
to do.
reason, which is
And I think that kind of
perhaps
belief,
much more
that kind of
important, is called
understanding that
death.
only by
Because what
attracting the
happens
top talent
when you burn
can
a flag
you, in fact,
is the
deliver
area goes
on this vision for the
crazy.
city.
If you
And,
have hundreds of
you know,
people, they
one
go
thing that I'll
crazy.
say
You
many
could
of us
do
in this
other
room have in
things. You
common
can
is
burn
I
this
too
piece
am
of
reading
paper.
of
You
new
can-
names I'm apparently
and
considering
it's-
for
but when
top
you burn
positions
the
every
American
day.
flag,
Well,
it incites
you know,
riots.
I have not made any
at
personnel
levels that
commitments.
we've
I
never
have, however,
seen
said a
before.
few things.
People go crazy.
The first is
In a way,
that I will
both
consider
ways.
everyone on the basis
There's some
of the
that are
work
going
that
crazy
they do,
for
not
doing
on
it.
the
There are
basis
others
of
that
who
are
appointed them.
angry.
You know, I have my
Angry
critiques of
about
the
them
Adams
doing it.
administration. That doesn't mean that you
Do you
shouldn't
wanna
consider
discuss
those
that?
working
Sure,
within
what
that
the
administration.
executive
I've
order
said,
does, sir,
for
it charges
example,
your Department of
that I
Justice
am
with
seriously considering
investigating
Police Commissioner
instances of
Tisch.
flag
And I'm
burning,
doing so
and then where there's
because
evidence
of the work that the
criminal
commissioner
activity,
has done
that
while
where
leading that
prosecution
department,
wouldn't fall
specifically
afoul of the First Amendment and
heartened by
instructs the
the
Department
swift
of
and
Justice
decisive
to
action to
prosecute
uproot
those who are
corruption at the
engaged
upper
in these
levels
instances of flag
of the department upon
And
entering
what
into
the
that role.
penalty is going to be,
And
if you
and I
burn
mean
a
this
flag,
for anyone
you get
across the
1 year
administration.
in jail.
And what I have also
no
been doing
early,
is speaking with leaders
exits,
across
no
a
nothing.
variety
You get 1
of
year
these
in jail. If you burn a
administrations. And so
flag,
those are
you get-
conversations
and
I've
what
had
it
on
does is
reflections on
incite
what
to riot. I
it
hope they
looks
use
like
that
to
language,
lead
by the
from
way.
within,
Did they?
what the
Incite.
internal
Incite
structure
to
looks like,
riot.
even just the question
And
of
you
how
burn a
you
flag,
want to
you
set
get
up
1
your
year in
first
jail.
deputy
You don't
mayor,
get 10
how many
years, you
direct
don't get
reports you
1
want,
month. You get
how
1
many
year in
deputy
jail.
mayors you want
And it
themselves.
goes on your record.
And so that
And
means
you will
having
see flag
conversations
burning
with Dan
stopping
Dotroff
immediately,
about
just like when I
what
signed the statute
vision for
and
virtuous growth
Monument
looked like,
Act.
what it could look
10
like.
years in jail if you
with
heard
only
any of
6
our
months
beautiful
left until the
monuments,
World Cup,
everybody
how
left
much
town.
of the Olympic bid
They were
ethos
gone.
could we bring
Never had a
with such a
problem
finite
after
period
that.
of time?
It's
It
pretty
means,
amazing. We stopped
you know,
it.
speaking
But this is
to
something
Maria
that's,
Torres Springer
I don't know, in a certain
and
way,
understanding the ways
equally
in
as
which
important. Some people would say it's
she
more
and
important.
so many others within
Because
the
the
Adams
people in
administration were
this
able
country
to
don't want to
shepherd
see our American
the question
flag
of
burned
city of
and
yes,
spit on.
you know, Dan Garodnick's incredible
And
work on that.
by people
so
that
these
are,
are the
in
conversations
many cases,
that I'm having in
paid
preparation,
agitators.
while also not
They're paid
looking to
by the
measure
radical
grades.
left
Great. So,
to do
so
it.
those are some of the people that
You
you've
talk to these
spoken
people,
with.
they don't even know,
Thank you
half
for
of them
sharing.
don't even know what they're
But-
doing.
but
They
can
say,
you
I
share
don't know.
with us some of the people that you're
They
actually
gave me money to
considering
do
beyond
this.
Commissioner
I see the same things that you do. They're bad people
I'll
that
keep
try
it
to
short. I
destroy a
can't.
nation. That's not important because
And part of
I
that
think
is
our
that I don't
nation
like to have job
now
interviews
is the
in
most
public.
respected
I do take
nation
them very
anywhere in the
seriously,
world by
however.
far. You saw that
And
with the
I
European
can assure
leaders
you that as
on
soon as I
Friday.
do have any
You
names
saw
that I
that
will
with
be
NATO, where
committed
they
to
agreed
working
to
with,
go
those
from
are ones I'll share
2%
publicly.
no pay
So
to
let's move
5%
on
fully
to-
paid
to
up,
regulation,
trillions
which is
of
the big
dollars
issue in New
paid,
York. And
where
Jim
they
Whalen,
respect your
the
president
president
to a
of
level
the Real
that
Estate Board of New York,
they jokingly call me
is
the
asking
president
about
of
local
Europe.
law
They
97,
call me the
which,
president
for
of
everyone in
Europe,
the
which
room,
is
that's
an
the
honor. I
climate
like
law
Europe and I like
that
those
is going to
people.
require
They're good
building
people. They're
owners
great leaders.
to pay for costly
And
climate
we've never had a
retrofits
case
in the next few
where
years, or else they'll face
7 plus
significant
really 28,
fines.
essentially
So
35,
Jim is asking
38 countries were
what role
represented
should
here
the
the
city
other day.
play in
38
helping property owners comply
European
with
countries
these
were
costly
European
mandates
and
like
other
Local Law
countries were
97?
represented.
I think this is
And it was
a
a great
great
meeting.
question.
But
You know, I think
your country is respected
With
again.
ProCare,
I
you
say
can
it
make
all
it
the
easy
time.
for parents to
1 year
register
ago, our country
and
was dead.
maximize your center's enrollment
Everybody
with
said it.
fast
We
and
had a dead
responsive
country.
automation.
We were
Make
not
a
going to
great
survive.
first impression
Now we have
every
the
time
hottest
with
country anywhere in the
ProCare.
world.
Request a
So
demo today.
It's an honor to be involved. And this
Pluto
group has a
TV
lot to
is
do
your
with it.
home
Right
for
behind
premium black entertainment.
You bring it on.
Check out the Black Collective and stream 19 live channels of your favorite black entertainment. All streaming free. Period. Pluto TV. Stream now, pay never.
You know, just a couple examples.
I think, in fact, about
a mother,
first
a
give an
single
example
mom,
of
whose
NYCHA.
house was burglarized, and the
NYCHA
defendant got
has
out on
a clean energy
cashless
challenge
bail, went back
where
the next night
they
and
procured
burglarized
tens
her
of
house
thousands
again.
of heat pumps
That's why
after
this is so
picking a
important.
public-private
A man got in a
partnership.
fight with
Those
another
heat pumps
guy.
are
He
currently
had a
being
gun. He
installed
was let out.
within
Next
Woodside
night,
houses
he
where
got
there's a
out,
pilot.
went back and killed him.
These are heat pumps that
So that's
have
why it's so important,
seen
President, what you're doing.
resident
And thank you,
satisfaction
and thank you
around
for
90%.
protecting the
They've seen
American
energy
flag. And
savings,
we'll
I think,
do
north
that
of
without
50%.
running afoul of the First Amendment
They've
as
been a
well.
success by all
And
metrics.
President, I think Terry
And
Cole,
part of
excuse
the
me, I think
reason
Gadi
that NYCHA is
Saralta
able to do this
had
is also
something
economies
he
of
wanted
scale.
to give you on
And
behalf
I
of all
think
the law
often about the
enforcement who are out there
city's
every
role
single
with
night.
local law 97 of what if the city, which I think there's an existing idea of like a New York City accelerator, but what if we made it a one-stop shop, not only one that took away many of the application fees that are required to be a part of fulfilling local law 97, but also was able to procure the kinds of necessary investments into building infrastructure that can be then distributed at scale. And I think of these as examples because, there was an example that stays with me of the Italian government doing a large-scale procurement. I think it was of heat pumps, and just how successful this procurement was to try and reduce costs for homeowners across the country. Our job here should be looking at the most important part of local law 97 being compliance, not looking to punish those who can't get there. We have to ask ourselves, how do we help everyone get there?
Personally, that they thank you for
Question
that.
about the ballot question related to housing.
You can continue unhandcuffing
Carl
law
Weisbrod
enforcement.
of
That's a
HRA
very
Advisors.
great honor. I'll save that and put
as
it
you
someplace
know,
up,
these questions
which
would
is
speed
important.
up
Thank
housing
you.
approvals by amending the city charter, but they've faced pushback from city council. And from
That's very
organized
nice.
labor.
Thank you.
Do you plan to
Well, we
vote
love
for
those
these
people.
questions?
They're brave.
So I am
and they love our
glad that these
country, and
questions
they don't
are on
want
the
to see.
ballot.
They
I'm
don't
glad
want to
that
see
New
it. Do
Yorkers
you know how
will
many
actually
people
have the chance
volunteered
to cast their
for
votes
this
for these.
job?
I'm in active conversations about these
Before
very
I
questions
ask the
with
VP to
both policy
say a
experts and
few words,
stakeholders.
because
I've
he
yet to
feels
take
very strongly about
I
it.
heard from some labor
I
leaders
think it's
yesterday.
very
They were
important,
saying that
Pam,
they've
that
urged you
when
to
we do
oppose them.
this,
Is anyone?
that
Have you spoken to
a
anyone
state
urging you
required,
to support
they
them?
come and ask
Yes,
us.
yes. I think there's a healthy.
I mean, I see
healthy array
Pritzker
of
say, we
opinions
don't
as it
want
is in
them.
our
In the
city.
meantime, his city is being shot to hell.
Shifting
And they
gears
do
to
that
the
politically.
federal government, President
And they
Trump
probably do want
has
it.
threatened
If
to
we didn't
cut
go
off
to
federal
Los
aid to New York
Angeles,
City once you take office.
you would
If he made
literally
good on that
had to
threat
call
on
off
day
the
one
Olympics.
of your
It
mayoralty,
was so
how
bad.
would you immediately?
And the sheriff and the law enforcement people, but the
My
sheriff
friend President Trump.
said, and he came out very strongly, he said, if we didn't have these people,
I think
we were not able
one
to
tendency
control.
we
Now,
have
4
is to
days
treat
later,
any threat
after we
from
had it totally
President
under
Trump as if
control,
it is
we
already
did that
law,
quickly.
just by virtue of him
He
having
changed
said
his
it.
tune a little bit. Well, I
And we have
think
to
put it
treat
on
his
it.
pronouncements as we
And
would treat
he
them
was-
from
they
anyone,
were
which
dead.
is to see whether they actually
If
fall
we didn't
within
send
the
in the
law.
troops,
And many
Los
of these
Angeles
threats
was
are ones
dead, the
that
Olympics
are
was gone, the
blatantly
World Cup was
outside
gone,
of the law.
everything was gone.
And I think
We
the
did a great job.
suspension of
And
$18 billion in
he's
federal
an incompetent governor.
grants that was recently
But
announced.
I think people should want us to be there, because
On one
otherwise
level, we
all
have to
they'll do is
understand this
complain
as
as
an
we do our
attempt at
job.
political retribution
So we'll have to think
amidst
about
a shutdown
that, okay? We
where
go in, like in Washington.
President Trump and the Republican Party
we go
would
in and the
rather
people that are here that
federal
have been
government
doing.
shutdown than
I
keeping
don't want
4
to say
million
terrible
Americans
because
on
she
their
happens,
health
you know,
care.
she's a nice
At
woman.
another level, we
Yes. I
also
don't
have
care
to
about if
understand
she's
that these
nice.
are the kinds of
I really
actions that
don't.
drive
I want
our
her to do-
costs
I'd rather have her
across
be
the city,
horrible,
across the
but
state,
do the
across the
job.
country. Because
But
the
we
more
come into
instability there
Washington
is
and
in these
we have
kinds of contracts,
the 11
the
best
more
days
anyone in
they've
the
had
private
here in
sector will say,
2
why should I
centuries.
take the
I mean,
risk
they've never
of
seen
having to
anything like
subject
it.
myself and
Let's
my
go
work
2
to
decades.
these kinds of conditions?
In over 20 years,
And we cannot
they haven't seen anything
disentangle
like what
this
happened.
kind of a threat
And now they're out
from
there
the
saying,
fact
we
that
don't have crime
the promise
in
was made to
Washington.
New
Well, that's
Yorkers
true. For 11
decades
days, you
ago
don't have
that
crime.
the Second Avenue subway
But
would
before
extend
that,
to
everybody
125th Street. And here
was
yet
getting
again
hit and mugged,
is
and
another
you
threat.
people
Here
could
yet
not
again is
walk
another
to your
threat to New
office
Yorkers
without
actually being
security.
able to save
That's
time
how
on their
unsafe
commutes,
it
not
was.
sit bumper to bumper
So I
traffic.
think we should
And
really,
all of it just because of
let
what is so
them
often just the
have
games
their
of
city,
Washington,
let
so
their city
divorced
go
from
to
the
hell,
needs of
and
New
when they come
Yorkers.
and
So I think
beg us
the
to
first
help.
thing is to actually
The only
interrogate
problem
the
is we want
legality
to
of
save it
any
for
of these
because
pronouncements,
the
of any of
people
these
want
threats.
us there.
The second thing is
The
to fight.
people here,
And what I mean by fighting is
95%
actually
of
being
the
willing
people
to not
here
only
want us.
publicly
The real
oppose
people,
this
not
kind
the
of an
people you
agenda,
find on, I don't know
but
where you
also
find these
to ensure
people.
you're using every
You have
tool
one
at your
person that has a
disposal.
broken
You know,
nose.
in
Where do you get
California,
it?
the Attorney
Well, I
General
was
there
mugged.
estimates that for every
You wanna
dollar they
see,
spent in
Trump
legal
here with-
fees,
No, I
they
don't
recovered
want-
more than
Woman has a broken
$30,000 in
nose.
federal funding that
She
would
got
otherwise
mugged.
have been stripped of the state.
But she's
And I'm
saying
lucky
she doesn't want
to
any
be here
protection.
in a state where we have an
It's
Attorney General
all
and Tish
made up
James who's
fake
done an
news.
incredible
It's
job
just
to that
fake
end.
news. I don't know
A
where you
Governor
find these
Kathy
people.
Hochul, who has been leading the
Anyway,
state in
would
this
you say
fight
a
back,
couple
both
of
of
words,
whom have
please?
endorsed
And then
this
I'm gonna ask,
campaign, and both of
JD
whom would be
to say
partners
something.
in
You have
fighting
done
for
an
New York.
unbelievable job in a short period of time.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Highly recommended
So,
by
the next question,
you
I'm
know
going to
who,
switch
right?
to just
Yes, sir.
competitive
You want to say his
jobs
name?
in New York City.
Mr. Youngkin. Go
I'm
ahead.
not
Yes, sir.
We stole you
The
from
city
He
Governor
called me.
Youngkin.
Add
He
me
called me. Glenn
right
Youngkin
to
called and he
what
said, "I have
concrete
somebody who's
steps would you
really
take to make New
fantastic."
York City
And
most
based on that
innovative place to
recommendation,
attract
here you
top
are. You've done a
talent and
fantastic job. I
businesses.
appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Go ahead.
The men and
We have
women
to
of
make- for
the
this to
Metropolitan
be
Police Department
our
are back.
business choice, we have to make
They
the city
enjoy
a choice.
doing their job again.
And what I mean by
They
that
feel
is
the
that too
ability
often
to
we
go out
have
and be law enforcement
rested on our
officers.
laurels
They feel that
of
they're
our
connected to
greatness,
their
of the fact
communities.
that we are a
They
destination.
are
We have to
making a
prove that and
difference.
earn that every
Thanks to
single
you,
day.
Mr. President, and our
And the
federal
way in
task
which we
force,
do that is
you
to
are making
ensure
DC
that,
safe.
one,
Once again.
this is
Thank you, sir.
It's going to
a
get better
city
and better.
where businesses
Well, it can't
know
get much better.
exactly
There's
what
no
kind of
crime.
regulations they
I
will
read
have to
where
deal with
crime's
and
down
why they will have to
89%.
deal
I
with
said,
it.
really?
And if there are
Who are
those
the
that we cannot
11%?
explain, we should not have
Okay.
them. And I'll give
No
you
crime.
an example at the small business level. I
JD,
spoke
please.
to an owner
Yes,
of
sir.
a barber
Well,
shop
thanks,
recently
Mr.
who told
President.
me
Thanks to the
that
incredible
he had
team
to
here.
fill out
You know,
24
I was
forms, go to 7
what
different
echoed something the
agencies,
president
and attend
said
12
where you
in-person
say there
events
haven't been murders
to
in a
start a
couple of
barbershop
weeks in
in New York
D.C. And
That
it doesn't
barbershop is
sound
starting
good,
in
but then you
spite
talk to
of
local
our
law
city, not
enforcement,
because
and
of
I
our
didn't
city.
realize this, that
And so
this
part of this is
town
taking a hard
averaged
look
one
at many of the
murder
decisions
every
that we've
other
made
day
and
for
asking
the last
ourselves whether
20,
these
30
deserve to
years,
stay
which
any
means
longer.
that in
Do we
two
really
short
need a
weeks,
restaurant to pay
the
$25
president
a
and
year
the
for the
team
right
have
to sell a
saved
frozen
6 or
dessert?
7 lives, people who would have
we
been
tell
killed
ourselves we
on
need
the streets of
single
D.C.
stairwell versus
who are
dual
now
stairwell on the
living,
basis of
breathing,
safety, and yet
spending time with their
municipalities that took a
families
different
because the
approach
president
have the
had the
same levels of
willpower to
safety,
say no
and
more.
yet
We're not
far
going to give
lower
the streets of
construction
D.C.
costs
over
as an
to
implication
vagrants
of that
and
same
robbers
decision.
and
So that's
murderers.
one
And
way
the last
that we
one I
make
want to make,
this
sir,
a city
to
of
your
choice
point
for
about
these
we
businesses.
want
The second
people
way
to welcome
is that
us,
we
to
also
ask us,
understand
because
that
look
for
at
these
Governor
businesses, the
Pritzker in
foundation of
Illinois, or
any of
Governor
their
Newsom
economic agenda
in
is
Los
also a
Angeles,
city
or
that has
Governor
an
Moore in
incredible quality of
Maryland.
life.
They are
That's a
angrier
quality of
about
life
the
that is
fact
built
that the
upon
President of
public
the United
safety,
States
that we
is
deliver
offering to
across the
help them
5
get their
boroughs, and I'm
crime under
excited
control
not only
than
to
they
be
are about the
working
fact that
with the
murderers
police
are running
department to deliver that,
roughshod
also
over their cities
to have
and
one of the
have been
largest
for
investments
decades.
in public safety
Why are
through our
Democrat
Department of
governors
Community Service
angrier
that will finally
about
address
federal law
a
enforcement
mental health
helping
and
clean up
homelessness
their
crisis
streets
that
than
is
they
often
are
at the
about
heart
the
of
fact that
many New
those
Yorkers'
streets need to be
concerns
cleaned up to begin
around
with?
that same
It
safety, around
shows
that
a
same
real
quality of
sickness
life,
in the head.
and
I
that
agree
we will
with the President of the
deliver
United States.
a
I think
cleaner
most
and more
Democrats, rank
efficient
and
city
file, nobody
by
likes
actually
crime.
funding the
Republicans
very
don't like
agencies
crime.
within city
Democrats
government
don't
that are
like
tasked
crime.
with doing so,
Independents
and by
don't like
flipping the
crime.
incentives
Why are
that are
Democratic
currently
governors
taking
doing
place. The last thing
everything
I'll just
in
share
their
on that.
power to
The
make
incentives
crime
in city
easier to
government
do
are
in their
such that if
cities?
you
It
have a
doesn't make an
trash
ounce of
can on
sense
a
to me,
street
but
corner
Mr.
that is
President, I
overflowing,
appreciate you
the
being willing to
response is
help,
often
and I hope these
remove the
governors
trash
take you up
can.
on the offer because we should clean
It's
up
not
all of
increased
America's
collection
streets.
from
It's
that
the right
trash
of
can or
every
have an
American to
additional
live
trash
in
can. It's to
safety
take the
and
trash
comfort
can
in their
away
community.
altogether.
And we've
That
got the
beggars
people to
belief.
do it. They're
Or
signing up.
when you are fighting
like
with the Department of
they've never
Transportation
signed
to
up
have
before.
street safety
Our
improvements,
military,
oftentimes it waits until
as you
someone
know,
is killed at that very
during the
intersection,
campaign,
and then the improvements are
nobody
immediate.
was signing up. We were
These
way
incentives
short.
have to be flipped
short of
so
their
that
goal,
everyone
short
who
of their,
works
we
here, who
were
lives here,
understaffed.
who wants to start a business
Nobody
here,
wanted to be in
can
the
understand
military.
that
Nobody wanted
they're
to be a
doing so
policeman. Nobody wanted to
because
be a
it
fireman.
is
They
the
didn't
most
want
rational
anything to do
decision
with the
as opposed
country.
to one they have to do
We had an
in spite of the
incompetent,
conditions
grossly
they see around
incompetent
themselves.
president who, frankly, should
Just
not have
can we
been
follow
there.
up on that for a second?
He
Every
should have
mayor
never
says they
been there.
want to
The
cut small
damage he
business red
done,
tape. Eric Adams said
he
that.
did
Why-
to this
what would you
country
do
is
differently? Why will you actually
incalculable. I mean,
You'll
just
find many differences
what
between
he has
myself
done
and Eric
so
Adams.
much of our effort are
I would
getting
also say
murderers
that, you know,
and jailbirds and people
part
out
of what
this
animates my
country
vision
who
for
are
this city
drug dealers
is
at
not
the
only the
highest level.
belief
So
of
much
government's
of
job
the
is to make
energy
life
of
easier
people
here,
that he led into
but
just
that we have a
it was
responsibility
an
in
unforced
showcasing that
era.
belief through
But
the
I don't
quality
think
of
they
service
think
that we're
it's an error.
providing
But I don't
across the
believe
city.
he believed it. It was the
And
radical lunatics that surrounded this guy.
The question
at
of whether
this
a small
desk,
business
who
can
are brilliant
flourish or
people,
not.
but with the
It is
wrong
at the
philosophy.
heart
There were some
of this
brilliant
vision.
people, but they're evil
And so
people,
often when I
and they're
speak
going
to
to be
small
brought down. They have
businesses,
to be brought
who in
down.
many ways are the
because they
embodiment
really
of a spirit
hurt
of
our country.
aspiration in this
But
city.
we're getting it back
What
very
I'll
quickly,
hear
and
is
I'll
their
tell you
interaction
something.
with
Our
city
country's
government often have to do
now
with an
is
investigator whose
stronger. I think
findings
we're
have more to
respected
do with
than
their
we've been
attitude on the
respected
day
in
than any
100 years.
violation of that
It's
moment.
a whole different ballgame.
And the
JD, can I
previous
ask
administration
you,
cut
you
fines
gave
and
a
fees by
stat
40%.
on murders
I've said that we're going to
here.
cut it by
What
50%.
were the numbers? You said in a short
And
period of time
I've said
how
that
many
we can
people
do that
were
because
murdered?
we've seen what's already
enforcement told
possible,
me,
but
sir,
also
that in the
we have a
past
city
20 or
government
30 years, DC
of a
has
budget of
averaged
about
a murder
$116
every
billion.
other day.
It
That's,
is
200
not
murders
being
a year,
funded
150,
by these kinds of
250,
violations.
but about
And
every
too
other
often,
day, a
whether
person
we're
has
having
been
this
killed
conversation
on
or
the
even
streets of
local law
Washington,
97,
D.C.
the
We've been
focus
doing
is
this
less
for
on
2 weeks.
compliance and more on
Zero
punishment.
people killed.
And we have to get
That's
back to
real
the question of
lives
compliance.
saved. That the media and frankly the entire
one of the
Democratic
things
Party
that
should be
Democrats
saying,
is that the
thank you for
business
saving
community
lives
is
instead of
concerned
attacking
about
the President of the United States for
MTA's
doing so.
reliability and cost.
You know, when the person,
So
when a
what
person,
specific
unfortunately,
steps would
will
you take
probably
to
happen
improve
at some
service
point,
and funding?
when a person's murdered
And
in
should
DC,
NYC take
it's
a
going to be the
larger
biggest
role
story
in
maybe in
running the
history. Right?
Yes, sir.
Somebody
Icon
was
has the
murdered
tools
in
pros
DC.
trust,
Trump
tested
is
tough,
failing.
and backed
No, we're
for
not
life.
failing. We have a safe
Only
city.
at
This is
Harbor
maybe
Freight.
the safest city in America right now. That's how good it is.
It's just right there.
And it would be nice to be appreciated. These people eventually, they're going to have to be appreciated for what they're doing. And they're going to have to be appreciated by the officials that are really happy when we go in because they've lost control of their place. Steve Miller, please.
I
say a few
think
words.
Thank you,
the
sir.
MTA.
So, just to, first
so
of
much
all,
to say
follow up
about
on what the Vice President said.
it.
No police
I
officer
think the business
working
community
in the
is right
city
to be
can remember a
concerned
time
about the
in
question of
their
reliability, the
lives
question of
when there
efficiency.
has
Actually, the
been
first time I
no
ever worked
murders.
with the
You can
partnership
work
with the
with
city of
police
New York
20 years, 30
was
years
on
or
the
less.
question
We've
of
checked
the
the records.
frequency
No
of
one
our
can even
subways.
find a
And we'd
record
launched a campaign
of
of
being
Fix the MTA in Albany, and we were
for as long
working
as we've
together
been
with the
murder-free under
partnership to
President
try and
Trump's
increase funding
leadership.
for
Additionally,
subways.
and the
We
President
won,
spoke about this
at the
before,
time it was $35
we've
million to
uncovered
do
in
so.
the process of
But we know that it's
uncovering
still far
a massive scandal
from
in Washington,
what is
D.C.
needed in this
with
city.
the
We talk
doctoring
about
of crime
ourselves having a
stats.
world-class
The Department
city
of
with
Justice
world-class
under
public transit,
the Attorney
but
General
every
is
time New
leading the
Yorkers go
effort
for a
to uncover this.
vacation
But when we
to
ultimately
a city
share
elsewhere
the
and they come
results,
back and they
it
see
will-
what
it will
actually
stun you.
could be.
The extent to which,
Now, I've heard
even
from
though
many New
DC
Yorkers,
had the
especially if they're coming back
crime
from Japan and
in
they talk about
America,
high-speed
honestly
rail,
measured,
oftentimes
it
my example of high-speed rail
dramatically
is when a
understated how
conductor
bad it
says the
was.
train's
There's
going
even
express and we're going to
accusations
miss the local stops.
Murders and
And
homicides
that's
were
been the
reported as
case for too many New
accidents instead of
Yorkers.
murders.
So there are a few
I mean,
things.
this is how
First,
severe the
we have to make sure that
manipulation of
every
crime
single
data
dollar is being
has
spent
been in
most
the city,
efficiently.
and it will
And what
all
I
be
mean by
uncovered,
that
and it will all be
is
brought
that the
to light.
former governor,
You know, I've had a chance to spend
Andrew
some
Cuomo,
time, as has everyone here, with the police officers in the city.
at one point
Members of the
announced a
public are
reorganization
going
plan
up
of
to
the
them
MTA.
and
Part of this
thanking
was
them,
driven by
just
an impetus to
overflowing
show
with
that costs were
gratitude.
being
For the
saved.
first time in
But there
their
was no
lives,
actual
they can use the
rationale
parks,
in
they
which
can walk on the
positions
streets.
were not
You have
being
people who can
rehired for, which
walk
positions were being
freely at
fired.
night
So what
without
you
having
ended
to
up
worry about
having
being robbed
was
or
an
mugged.
ad
They're wearing
hoc
their
system
watches
whereby
again.
anyone who
They're wearing
retired or
jewelry
left,
again.
their
They're carrying
position was
purses
simply not
again.
replaced.
People had
And
changed
so
their
the
whole
differing
lives in
levels
this
of
city
public
for fear of
capacity
being
within the
murdered, mugged,
MTA started to
and
shift
carjacked.
on what they
It
could
is
do
a
internally.
literal statement
And part
that
of the
President
legacy
Trump
of that is when we built the
has
Second Avenue
freed
subway, the first portion of it, that first
700,000
phase we
people
spent
in
more
this
money
city
on
who were
consultants
living
than
under the
construction.
rule of criminals
And this is
thugs. And the
part
last
of the
thing I'll say
ballooning costs. I'm not
is
just
that
talking about the
under
suspension of the
the
18 billion,
efforts
but the
of
fact
Kerry,
that we are
to my
losing
left,
the
and then
ability to
here,
do
what they
things
found
ourselves,
also is that
and
the
oftentimes we're
street criminals
outsourcing
here in
these
Washington,
responsibilities
D.C.
in a language
were
of
doing
cost
business
savings, but
directly
we're finding that that
with
cost
the
is just
transnational
continuing to
criminal
balloon.
cartels, the foreign
The last
terrorist
thing that I'll add is
organizations.
I think the city
So
should
not
be
only
doing
was the
far
city
more
being run by these
in
criminal
its
thugs,
engagement with the
but they were
MTA, and I
working
actually
with
think
some
of
the most
Mayor
dangerous terrorist
Bloomberg as an
organizations
example of
on
what
the
we can do.
planet to traffic
Mayor
weapons
Bloomberg
and
was so
drugs
passionate
into this
about the
city.
extension of the
And
7
we are
train line to
covering
Hudson
every
Yards
day
that the
is
city
shocking to
took
us,
on the
and we
responsibility
look forward
of
to sharing
paying
all
for
the
that
results
subway
with you, but
station,
President Trump,
which is
your
historically
leadership
a state
has
responsibility.
uncovered some of the great
And
public
much of my
safety scandals
campaign
of our life, and
has
now
been focused
because
on
of
public
you,
transit.
people are safe and
Part
free
of
for
it
the first
as
time
a
ever
reflection
in this
of
city.
what's
Thank you
possible
very much,
if
Steve.
we're
You know, in
actually
Los
committed
Angeles,
to it. Part of it also because
Beverly Hills
amidst
is,
the MTA being a
great
state
place.
agency,
I have
the
a
city
house there. I had a
controls the
house there. I used
streets
to
of
stay a
the
lot of
city. The
time,
city determines
spend a lot of time
the
there.
speed by which buses
And
will
a
actually
great
travel.
place.
And right now
You
they're
know
the
that
slowest
I have
buses in the
friends,
country.
they
They're
leave
traveling at an
their
average
trunk
speed
open
of
for
8
their
miles
car
an hour.
because
And for
they don't
all of
want-
the
they know
focus
they're
on
gonna
the
be
economic relief
vandalized.
and the public safety
They don't
relief,
want the
what we
trunk
sometimes
ripped
miss
off in
are
order
the
for them
larger
to steal what's
economic
in the
benefits to
back.
productivity
They leave the doors
if we were to
open,
have
so when
buses
they
that
go
were
in to
fast
steal
and
the
free,
radio
and
or
how we
whatever
could
they
ensure
take,
that this
that they don't
economy
rip
was
off the door.
stimulated
They leave the
in a
doors
manner that
totally
currently
open,
is
so
being
the
denied.
criminals, when they go and open the door, they have to break the windows
Shifting
and
gears again,
kill
this
the car in
question
order
from
to
Danny
steal whatever
Meyer,
it is
restaurateur,
in
founder
the car
of the
that they're looking
Hospitality
for.
Group.
And
It's
that's
about tourism. What's your plan to
at a
grow
level that
domestic
nobody's
and
ever seen
international
before.
tourism?
Nobody lives
And what
like
role
that.
should tourism play in
I have another friend. He has a garage.
I think tourism
and in order to
should
save
play an
his
incredible
garage
role
door, he
in
leaves
this
it
economy. And
open
I think what we're
so
looking
that
at
people
right
can
now
just
are
walk
the
into
losses
his
of about
garage,
$4
take
billion
whatever they
in
want,
just this this year alone.
and leave.
Part of that
But
is a
all the cars
reflection
are, so many cars,
of the
I've been told this by
consequences
many
of
people,
President
stars,
Trump's
big people,
orientation to the
they
world at
leave their
large, but
doors
also an
open so the
immigration
doors
agenda
aren't
and the enforcement of
destroyed
that
by
agenda
these criminals.
that has
All over Los Angeles, this is
left
taking place.
many across this country and across the world asking
and
themselves
you know
why
that.
they would
I mean,
come
you've
here
heard that.
when they read stories
Christy,
of
could you say a
tourists or
few
green
words?
card holders
Well, Mr.
or
President, I think one of the,
undocumented New Yorkers or
most
Americans
impactful, statistics that you
being
used
stopped
today
at
was of the
airports,
1,000
being detained
arrests
for
that have
days,
happened
being
already
asked
so far.
to give up the
439
documentation
of
that they
them
have.
were illegal
And
criminals,
yet we know that
which means they
tourism is
never
the
should have been in
lifeblood
this
of the
country to
city.
begin with. That they were in
Next
this
year we
country,
have the largest
invaded over
sporting
our
event in
southern
the
border
world
or our northern
coming.
border or
And it's as if
maritime seas,
no one is
and then
thinking
they
about it
committed
from within
crimes
city
against the
government
American people.
at
So
this moment.
by getting those
And
individuals
I lament that the
incarcerated,
ways
we've
in which,
stopped those
you know,
violent crimes from happening
Dan
here in the
Doctoroff's use
city.
of the
And
Olympic
sir, they
bid
do.
was a
Exactly like
catalyst for
Stephen
the
was talking, they
transformation
have
of the
ties
built
to
environment of the
cartels.
city.
They have networks across
Here
this
we
country
have
and other
an
cities.
even larger sporting
So by
event
what
that
you're
has not
doing
been
here
used
is
in
going to
that
have a
manner.
ripple
And I have
effect
many
in Miami,
an idea and
in
actually
Chicago,
quite excited
in
at the
other cities
conversations I've
because
had
you're grabbing those networks
with
and
Abney
giving us
and with other
information
business
and
leaders across
targeting
the city as
information
to
to go
what
and
those
get more
6 months could be
criminals
put forward
across
to.
this country.
But
So
I
thank
think
you for the work that you're
it
doing.
will have to also be a message
we
to the
have
world
ICE
that they are
and
welcome in the
CBP,
city,
Federal Protective
that we want them
Services, Secret
to visit
Service,
New York City, and I'll be
HSI,
proud
all of
to
our
be the first
officers are
immigrant mayor
working
of the
with all
city
the
in
other
generations
agencies
to make
every
it
day
clear
here in
that
DC, and
the
they're so
destinies of
proud
this city and the
to
world
have
are
this kind of
interwoven
partnership.
together.
So they're so
And
glad
it's
that you're
time that
letting
we
them
actually
do
have an
their jobs
alternative
again.
vision
And I don't know if
for
you've
what
heard, sir,
politics
but
can
the
look like
recruitment
beyond
campaign
just
for
an echoing of what
ICE,
Washington
when we
DC
were going
is.
to hire
You mentioned all the
10,000 new
tourists who are going to come
officers,
here for the World
we've got
Cup.
over
They where are they going to stay?
30,000 people
Mostly
that have
banned
applied
Airbnb,
and raised their
mostly banned
hands
the
and said
construction
they
of new
want to
hotels,
work with ICE. So no
hotel
matter
tax
what the
amendment.
fake news
Should either of those
says
two things
or what
be
the media
revisited?
says about
No,
ICE not
I
having support, they've got incredible
continue to have
support from
concerns
the
around the
American
proposals that have been
people want
put
to
forward
join
around
them and help them
Airbnb,
do what they're doing
specifically
to make America
around
safe
the ways
again.
in which they could
thank you for
transform
that.
the
going to say
availability
that,
of
our recruitment
housing
drive,
that's currently
so
on
it was
the market.
dead. During the campaign,
And
they
I
couldn't
think
get
that
it. Every story was
one of the key
Army
things we
can't
can
fill out,
do
the Marines, none of them could
is
fill
first
out. They were
to
way
ensure that
behind.
New Yorkers
Couldn't get
can
anybody
broach
to
the
go into the
question
military,
of
couldn't get
not
any
New Yorkers,
police.
rather tourists
We've
of
just
affording the
set
city because many
records on
are asking
everybody
themselves
wants
first
to be
whether they
in.
will be even safe
Everybody
in the
wants to
city.
go in.
And they don't mean that
And we're taking
with
incredible
regards to the
people. I mean,
NYPD
the
or crime. They
level
mean
of,
that with
you know,
regards to
because of
ICE.
the Supreme
They
Court
mean
is
that with
based
the
on
threats
merit.
that have been put
It's
forward.
all based on
having
merit
those
now.
very
It's not
agents
based on
surrounding
anything
these
else. You gotta-
stadiums. And I think that
if
that's
they-
going
if
to
you
be one
need
of the most
strong
critical
people, you
visions.
have to get
And then
strong
also
people.
ensuring that our
It's
city
all
is
based
ready
on merit.
for all of the
But we're
people who
setting
will come
records in
and
the
to ensure
Army,
that when they
Navy,
move through
Air
the two
Force,
host cities
Marines,
for the
the
World Cup
Coast Guard.
final, it is an easy experience to do so.
One of my favorites,
So
because
we've
I
got
happen
less
to
than a
have
minute,
created
so
Space
we'll have
Force.
to
We're
answer
very
this
proud of
last
Space
question
Force.
quickly.
It's amazing
This one
what
comes
it's
from
doing.
Karen
We're leading in
United,
space
the CEO
now.
of Emblem Health.
China was killing us.
She
Russia
asks,
was
given
beating
cuts
us.
at the federal
China
level,
was
would you
killing us. We're now
expand
killing
the
China. We
mission
are leading
of the
in
New York City
space
Department of
by a
Health
lot
under your
because of Space
administration?
Force. So we're very proud. But
I think there's
everybody
a lot
wants
of
to go
work
in.
for us to
We
do
went
in
from
New York City to
not-
step
and you
up
know
to
how
this
bad that
moment. I
is for
think
the
also
spirit when
some of that has to
every
do with
story
also
that you
heading
were
to
writing
Albany
a year ago
with a
was that,
vision that
nobody
for
wants to
whatever
go into the
revenue
military
raisers
anymore.
that
And
are on
if
the
you're in the
table, as
military,
we
you know how
pursue the
deflating
ones I've
that is.
put
You go home
forward,
with your
as we
family.
pursue
Nobody wants
a
a
vision
job
for what
that
it
you
means to
have. Well, now it's the
defend this
opposite.
state from the worst of these
Everybody
cuts
wants to be there.
is
And that includes police
also
and
to
fire
ensure
and
that
everything
we
else.
are protecting those who are the least from the worst of what's being put forward in Washington. And also,
Just
we
the
are
presidents
understanding
were
that this
stopping
battle
them.
is not yet
We've
done.
stopped
in
7
Washington.
wars.
These cuts, which
And
have been
really the
promised,
number is
are
actually
still ones
10.
that are
We're
up for
not
political
including
debate.
a couple,
And
and
I've
we're not including
appreciated
in there
the ways in which
what we did with
so many
Iran,
have been holding the
stopping
line
their
in this
nuclear play.
moment
They would have had
because
within
the difference
a
in
month or
giving into
two,
this
they would have
administration
had a nice
is
big
one that
nuclear
would
weapon to
transform the
use.
amount of money
That's not going to
that
happen.
New Yorkers and
That won't
Americans
happen.
have to pay
Pete,
for
go
these
ahead,
healthcare
please.
premiums.
Nationwide is so much more than a great insurance company. They're one of America's largest financial services companies. Like how I'm more than just Peyton Manning. I'm also motivating Manning. When I say insurance, you say financial services. Insurance. Financial services. Insurance. Financial services. Now when I say nationwide, you say is both. Nationwide. Nationwide. For your insurance and financial needs, Nationwide is on your side.
Nationwide Investment Services Corporation, member FINRA, Columbus, Ohio.
Curtis is also a longtime radio personality and an advocate in public safety issues. Please
just like we have been
Curtis
down at the
Sliwa.
southwest border, where crossings are at 0, we've got national defense areas where we're working with Border Patrol to secure the southern border for the American people. Just like Los Angeles, where ICE officers deserve to do their job without being attacked, we're really proud to be a part of defending the nation's capital and ensuring it is safe and beautiful and working with law enforcement. And Mr. President, let me tell you, the morale of the troops, getting out there talking to them, they love this mission. They're grateful to be doing it, whether they're DC National Guard or other state National Guards. And
First,
your
I want to
direction
thank
as
all
well,
of
sir.
you
It's
for
just
coming
common
here
sense
this
to make sure
morning.
they're armed as well. And so
As
they
you can see, I'm not
will
wearing
know
my
sure they're
traditional
armed,
red beret.
capable of defending themselves and others if need be,
And I'll explain
supporting law
momentarily.
enforcement, and we're proud to be there.
So I'm going to take
Well,
you
look at the
on a
mission you
bit
just
of a
accomplished
time
with
machine
Iran.
Then,
36 hours back and forth.
Last night I was
Flawless.
fortunate
Every
enough,
bomb
my
hit
wife
its
Nancy,
target. They
who's
went
an
right
attorney,
down those chutes.
took me
Dark
to
at
the
night,
Yankee
no moon, no nothing.
I hadn't
Every
been
target,
to, the new
every
Yankee
bomb went
Stadium
right
in
down.
quite
They
some
have a
time.
chute
I
that
have
goes
a
right down deep
preservation
into the
in
mountain.
many ways.
And
I
they
love the
shouldn't have
old
put
stadium.
ventilation in, I can tell you,
But
because
it
we
harked
used
me
that
back
for our
because I felt we
advantage.
were lucky
But
charms
what
last
they
night
did,
when
and we had
Aaron
the
Judge
pilots
hit that
and even the
3-run
people that
homer
took
at
care of the
lead.
planes. We had a whole group
Comeback
of
of the
people at the White
Yankees,
House
2-1.
a couple of
Hopefully
weeks
we
ago.
take out Toronto.
And you know, I
But
didn't
in
realize this, but they
1977,
said,
I was running a
we've been looking
McDonald's
at their predecessors,
in a high
and
crime
then these
area
were the
of
pilots.
the
They
Bronx.
said, We gave them
The Bronx was
beautiful
burned.
medals. And
It was
I'll
massive
show you the
flight
medal.
in the 70s.
Gave
A
them the
million
medal just
people
like this.
had already
See?
picked up and left New
Just
York
like
City.
that.
Many of them
They were
from
so
the
happy.
Bronx.
Gave a lot of them
They
out
went
for
into
that.
nearby New
It was
Jersey,
an incredible job.
Westchester,
You know, we had 52
Connecticut. They
tankers. People
they
don't
couldn't get
realize.
out quick enough
So that
with
they could
some on
refuel.
fixed income.
We had many
All they
fighter
did
jets,
was put more bars on the windows, locks on the doors.
F-35s. We had many. It was
And
an amazing
nightlife
operation.
ceased to
It was
exist
flawless.
as a result
Compare
of
that to
the
the
Son of
operation
Sam
when they went in with the
70s.
helicopters crashing and
So there I was. I
everyone
hadn't
running
put
around
on
the
a red
desert,
beret yet,
the prisoners being
managing
taken.
a very large
And that was Jimmy Carter.
And while
what a
conducting the
horrible
shift,
thing. This was the exact
was the night that
opposite.
Reggie
This was the
Jackson
exact
on 3
opposite
consecutive
of what they
pitches
did
hit home
in
runs.
leaving
and the Yankees beat
a
Tommy
very, very
Lasorda
nice
and
place.
the
The
Dodgers
Taliban has
4-2.
runs a tough
But a
operation
very
in
famous
Afghanistan.
statement was
and
made on that
I think it was the
national
most
broadcast by
embarrassing
Howard
day in the history of
Cosell.
our country. That was
As the
Biden.
cameras
I was
pointed
leaving,
in the
and we
distance
would have left through
to
strength,
buildings
tremendous
that were on
strength.
fire.
We would have
They had been
had tremendous.
torched,
We would
bombs was
have kept
burning.
Bagram, which is the air
Howard
base,
Cosell
one of the
said at that
largest
moment, you know,
runways in the
Georgetown
world,
ran a
one of the
scene
most powerful.
scene
You could land
owner
anything on it.
of the
Many feet
most famous
thick.
franchise
You don't build
sports
them
in the
that
world.
way anymore.
Was thinking
You
of
can't.
moving.
But we
the
left it, and now
Meadowlands.
China's occupying
I
that air
remember I
base.
stopped.
This was the most
In fear,
incompetent
fright, and
administration
hysteria,
in
and
history,
the
the
only thing
Biden
that we ever moved to
administration.
the Meadowlands was
And
garbage and the
you're
bodies
just
of
lucky that they
dead
lost,
members
because
of
if
organized
they
crime.
won, you wouldn't have a country
And that's
anymore.
when I began my
And so, Pete, you
movement
started off
of
by saying
Improve,
the
Don't
Department
Move.
of Defense.
And
And
it
somehow it
started
didn't
to
sound
move
good
in
to
the
me.
development of cleaning up
You
the
know,
streets
it
and
didn't
most
sound good.
importantly,
Defense. What are we defense?
patrolling
Why are
the
we
trains
defense? So it used to be
and the
called the
streets
Department of War.
in that red beret.
And
Because
it
we
had
were
a
under
stronger
fiscal
sound.
constraint.
And as you know, we won
Financial
World
Control
War
Board
I,
had
we
been
won
set up in
World War II, we won
1975 by
everything.
Governor Kerry.
Now we have
With
a
perilous
Department
times.
of Defense.
We
We're
on-
defenders.
We were on the brink of
I
fiscal
don't know.
dissolvency.
If you people
and I
want to,
believe we're
standing
moving in
behind
that
me, if you take a
direction
little
now.
vote, if you want to change it
Felix
back to what it
Roatan
was,
and the bankers
where we used to win
Victor
wars all the
Gotbaum,
time, that's
who
okay with
represented
me.
the unions,
All right?
pooled their
You
resources
guys-
to keep
you
the
let
city
me know if you
afloat.
want to do it. I think
I knew
Department of War.
Victor
It just
later on
sounded
in
bad. He
life,
said,
he
sir, on behalf
explained
of the
to me
Department of Defense.
How difficult the
Defense.
process was, and a
I don't want
brand
to be
new mayor,
defense
Ed
only.
Koch, came in.
We want defense,
And
but we
now
want
he had
offense too, if that's
restrictions
okay.
on
So
how he
you'll
could
make a
spend money.
decision. But you know, as
Politicians
Department
with
of War,
restrictions
we
on how
won
to spend money.
everything.
Something you all have to do
We
in
won
business,
everything.
everybody has to do
And
in
I
our
think we're going to have to
household.
go back to
Federal
that.
government does
In the
it.
meantime,
37
I've stopped
trillion, we keep
all of
printing
these
money.
wars. I've stopped them.
But
The
now
big one would have
the
been
city had
India
to,
and Pakistan.
actually
But we
declare
stopped them
how
all.
it
We
was
stopped
spending every nickel, diamond,
3 wars.
penny.
Go
Remember
to
the
Africa.
draconian cuts
They like to say, oh,
in
you know,
police, firefighters, social
okay, I love black
workers,
people.
educators.
And I
And
did
it
great
also
with the
led
vote
up
with
to
black people.
the debates
But
of
they say he's a racist. He's a
1977
racist. I
featuring
said,
another
really?
Cuomo, a much
For 35 years, a
Mario
war raged between Rwanda and
was
the
Ed
Republic
Koch,
of
the
the Congo.
Democratic nominee
And it was a
versus
vicious
Mario
war.
Cuomo,
9
the
million
liberal.
people were killed with
Barry Farmer,
machetes,
the talk
largely.
show host, who
Hatchets,
actually had lost
machetes.
to Bella Abzug in a
That went on
congressional
for
run the year
30,
before.
more than 30
And
years,
Roy
34,
Goodman, who
35
was the heir
years.
to the Ex-Lax fortune,
And I stopped it. In
Republican
fact, the
state
presidents are
senator of the
coming in
Upper East
a
Side,
week or
who
two
was
to
a
sign.
Rockefeller liberal
We have the foreign
Republican.
ministers. It's
He
all
had
signed. The
12
war
debates.
stopped. But I
Gabe
got it
Preston,
stopped
the
and
dean of the
saved
News
a
Corps,
lot of
hosted many
lives.
of them.
The Congo.
And I'll never forget the moment that I was
steeped
watching
into
in my apartment in the Bronx.
Deepest,
And
darkest
Ed
Africa.
Koch turned to
I
Mario
got that war
Cuomo and
stopped.
said,
Nobody else could have done
"Of course
that.
we have
We
to
did a
make
lot of
cuts.
jobs. We did a lot of
Because we
a lot
were
of wars were
fiscally
stopped that
dissolved.
nobody thought would
We're
even
under
be
the
possible.
Financial
And I'll tell you
Control
what,
Board, and
the
Mario,
war
the true
with
liberal
India
that he was,
and
said no
Pakistan,
cuts.
that
We
was the
cannot
next
make any
level. That
cuts
was
in
going
the
to be a
budget.
nuclear
Well,
war. They already
luckily,
shot down
Ed
7
Koch
jets.
went on
That was
and
raging.
operated with those
And I said, you
restrictions.
guys want to do trade? We're not
So
doing
now,
any trade. We're not doing
here and
anything
now,
with you if you keep
right
fighting.
across
You
the
get-
street, just
you
to
get
give you an
24
idea
hours
of
to
the
settle
direction
it.
I'm going.
They said,
I have led
well,
with my
there's
wife
no more
the
war
movement
going.
to remove the
And I
horse
used that
carriage industry.
on numerous occasions.
Drivers
Trade, I
there
used
who
trade, I
depend
used
on
other,
that
I
for
used
their
whatever you had to
livelihood,
use.
and replace
We
it
got
as
7
has
of
been
them
done
stopped.
around the world
And
with
the
electric
one I thought would
carriages
be
so that they
easiest,
can
frankly, was going to be
continue to earn a
Russia
living.
and Ukraine.
There are
But that
180,000
turns out
drivers
to
in New
be
York City now who are
some
in
big
perilous
personality conflicts.
times.
It's one of
They
those
are
things. But
fearful
we're going to get that stopped
of these
eventually. We're going to
driverless
get that
cars
stopped too.
that the
7,000
administration is
soldiers
doing a
died last
test
week.
with.
Think of that.
Imagine
7,000. I
180,000
usually say
men and women,
5,000, but
whether they're Uber drivers, many of you
7,221
use them,
soldiers
Lyft or
died
Yellow
last week in the
Cabs,
fight between
who are
Ukraine and
fearful
Russia.
that they will have
And
no
they're not our soldiers,
alternative
but they're
income.
souls. They're living
as we're
souls,
moving,
and
they
they
won't.
leave their homes and
Then
they
I
wave
knew
to
with
their
my wife,
parents, and
Nancy,
their parents are so
who's an
proud.
e-attorney, a
And they
millennial.
leave in a beautiful
And I talked
uniform.
with her and her her friends,
a
many
week
of them
later
who
they get
believe
their
in
head
the
blown
American
off by
dream,
a
go 4
drone.
years
New form
education.
of
She went to
military. It's a
Stony
whole new
Brook,
form
went to
of
Brooklyn
fighting.
Law, got her law
So
degree like many
I
of
would
her
just
friends.
like to
Some
thank
of them
the
are
people
CPAs,
that
some of
are
them are financial analysts.
behind me.
Some
Thank
of
you
them are
very much.
lawyers
You've done
like
a fantastic
yourself.
job. I appreciate
And the
it very
threat
much.
of AI, artificial intelligence.
We're doing
so
a real.
in the business
we're doing a
community, they're
real
saying,
job.
you know, it's coming. There's
And
nothing
I'm so
you can
proud
do. It'll
of
actually
DC.
create jobs.
I passed it
Create
2 days
jobs.
ago, and
You better
all
tell
the
the
garbage is
millennials
off the
and
streets.
the Gen Zers that
It's
because
terrible.
they're in fear that the American
came in,
dream that they were promised is
a month
dissolving
and a half
right
ago.
in
I'm
front of
driving
them
down, and I see
because they
garbage all
followed
over
the
the place.
route.
The
to
streets
be
were
able to own
pigsty.
their own
Like,
home, their own
like
car,
I won't use the
be able
city's
to
names,
live in an
but you know
apartment by
what I'm talking
themselves
about.
instead
There are
of
plenty
having
of them
dormitory-style
outside
living
of this
while
country
making
and inside of this country.
$155,000
Baltimore is a
a year
horrible,
with 3 other
horrible
roommates. very much
deathbed.
like
It's a
it was to them
deathbed.
in college.
I know Governor
and all
Moore
of that has to be addressed.
said, "Oh, he wants to
And
take
it's
a
really
walk
not.
with me."
So,
He
well,
meant
AI
it
is
in a
coming.
derogatory
Well, AI is
tone. I said,
coming.
"No,
By
I'm the
2030,
president of the United
we
States.
will
Clean
have
up
to
your crime and
double
I'll
the
walk with you."
electricity output.
But it's
Right
tremendous
now, we're
crime.
suffering
But he was
with
trying to be
extraordinary
derogatory. He doesn't
electricity
have what
rates,
it takes.
courtesy of
But
Andrew
he's trying to be
Cuomo, who
derogatory.
took Indian
And
point offline.
I met him
That
at
was
the Army Navy game. They
25%
said,
of
"Oh,
our
there's Governor Moore. He'd
electricity
love to see you."
with no
He
alternative,
came over
no
to me,
natural
hugged
gas.
me, shook my hand.
So
You were
now
there.
when you look at
He
average
said, "Say you're the
rate
greatest
whether
president
you're
of my
a
lifetime."
business or your
I said, "That's
homeowners,
really nice
skyrocketing rates,
that you say that. I'd love you to say it publicly, but I don't think you can do that, so it's okay."
I'm the
But
only
no, I said, "You're
candidate
doing a
who says
fantastic
we've got to
job. I
across
want to
the
just
board cut
shake
the
your hand.
taxes,
Thank you very much,
or the
Governor.
fight
That was
will
it."
continue.
And
Corporate
then every
flight,
time I see him on
and then we
television,
have to
he's
maintain
knocking the
our
hell out of
workers,
me.
especially
But that's
those
all
who are
right.
trained.
It's called
They're
politics.
also fleeing.
But
we got to cut the income
Governor
tax.
Moore's got
and all I
he's
have
doing
to
a
do
bad
is to
job.
stay on that. We have
Newsom's
to
doing a
cut the
bad job.
corporate tax.
All
I
of
don't
their
have to deal
potential
with the state,
candidates are
but
doing
we
a
can
bad
deal with
job.
the
I can't
property
imagine
tax,
Pritzker
which the
being
city
even a
controls.
candidate, but
And there
somebody
are no
said he is.
efforts
He
to
can't
do
do
that.
the work.
I
Can't
haven't
do the
heard that
job.
from any of my
He's not
adversaries
temperamentally suited.
or Andrew
So,
Cuomo.
I
Secondarily,
just want to thank you all
we
for
have
being here. Do you have
to,
some
and I've been
questions?
advised
Mr.
by
President,
the
is the
two best
Pentagon and maybe the
in
Secretary of Defense can
business
weigh in
of
too?
knowing
Is the
how to run a
Pentagon
budget
preparing for
and
military
also how to run a
deployment to
business
Chicago?
and run
And
government.
with what you said there,
Larry
are you
Kudlow
waiting
and
for
his
the
economic
We're ready to go
advisors are
anywhere.
on
We
my
have
team.
a
And
full
former Governor Pataki, who both
complement of
Democrats and
great
Republicans
human beings.
acknowledge
We're
had
full.
a great
Our
job
military
that
is
he did
full.
in 12 years.
We were
got to cut this
way
budget.
empty
$118
1 year
billion
ago. Now we're
budget.
full. So we
$41
can go
billion
anywhere
alone
on
for the Department of
less than
Education.
24 hours notice.
42,000
And we're doing a lot to
100,000
interdict to stop
less
drugs
students
from coming in
enrolled.
too. We have
1/3 of
ships
choice
out
every
on
day.
sea.
Average
You know, we
fourth
have nobody
grader,
coming through our
2/3
border
of them
anymore.
cannot
Nobody.
read,
Doesn't
write,
that
or
feel
do
good
math
to
at
know that
grade
you don't
level.
have
We have
prisoners
200
coming in
schools with
and
less than 200
killers,
students.
murders?
There's
We
mayoral
had
control, but it's Michael Mulgrew,
11,888
the
murders
union
coming,
leader, who
led in by the
controls
Biden administration.
how these schools
Many of them
operate.
have been
I
captured.
would conflate them.
But we still
and
have
we got to cut that
a
bureaucracy.
couple of thousand
if you go
that are
to
out
Tweed
there.
Courthouse,
Some of them,
an
50% of them
appropriate
killed
place,
more than
the
one
home of
person.
Tammany Hall
Okay,
for the
but a lot of
Department
them
of
have been
Education.
captured.
You have
What
13
they've
deputy
done to
chancellors,
our country,
50
these people
department
that
heads.
circle
When you
this,
talk to the principals in the
moron that
school
we
as
have
I
behind
do,
this
who
desk,
hire the staff
what
and
they've
now
done
hire
to
the
our
teachers,
country is
they don't know who
unthinkable.
those
It's
deputy
unthinkable.
chancellors
I mean,
are. They
if you
don't
think
even know who the department
so
heads
much
are.
of our
Cut at
time
the top
is devoted
so
to
that we can
correcting
get
a
more money in
problem
the
that
classroom.
all they had to do is say
Teachers
close
are
the
still
borders.
paying out of
Remember
their
when he
pocket
said,
for basic
well, I have no
supplies.
power to
That's
close the
one
border. I have to go
agency
back
of
and get an
many
act from
that I
Congress.
will
I didn't get
cut.
an act from
Bob
Congress. I
Holding,
came
who
in, I
leads
said,
Democrats
close the
with
borders.
Sliwa, has been
And
a
Tom
great
Homan, who's not
councilman
here,
for
has
8
been
years. His
fantastic.
term
Mr.
limited,
Redd.
but he was a
Tom
teacher
Homan is
for
great.
40 years
He's
and
a
a civic
fantastic
leader.
man.
So I
And
have a
respected
team of
by
competent
everybody.
men
But
and
I
women.
said, Tom,
I'm
close
not
the borders.
omnipotent,
Christie, close the
like many of
borders.
the candidates
The borders
claim
were
to
closed.
be.
We didn't go to
I
Congress.
know I will have to
Get
rely on
permission.
the
We just
best
closed the
men
borders.
and women available.
And in the
both
last
from
3
the
months,
corporate
hard to
sector
believe this one
and
too.
those who have been great civil
In the last 3
servants who
months,
have
we've
never
had
been elevated.
zero
This
people
will be an
come into
administration
our country
that
illegally through the
recognizes
southern
new
border.
ideas, new concepts,
Nobody would have said that's
and
possible.
incredibly
Yeah,
what we
please.
have to do.
Thank you,
We're right at the end of our time.
Today, MS-13 gangbanger and human trafficker Kilmar Abrego Garcia turned himself into ICE in Baltimore. Do you have any comment on this? And why are the Democrats so emotionally attached to this man who beats his wife and is part of a terrorist organization?
Because they think he's
we're
going to
at
be
the end
good
of
for
our time.
us, and I think he's very bad for us. These people are deranged. He's not good for us. He beat the hell out of his wife. His wife is afraid to even talk about him. She's been mauled by this animal. And,
We went a little over here, so
you know,
we'll get
through
right
a system
started.
of liberal
Nick, I think you're
courts,
jumping in with the first question.
he's
thanks
doing
for being
things,
here.
but no, we have that
First
under
question is
control.
just about your
Pam has,
candidacy overall.
got
You're
that
under
very
a
much
lot
under
of pressure
control.
from
Do you
the
want to
business
comment
community
on
to
it?
withdraw from the race.
We've
since your
got
campaign
him
makes it
under
more likely that
control. He
Zoran
will no
Mamdani
longer
will win
terrorize
just
our
doing the
country.
math.
He's currently
So why are you
charged
staying
with
in the
human
race given how
smuggling,
strongly you're
including
criticizing
children.
Mamdani's
The
policies?
guy needs to be in prison.
You know, it's
He doesn't
interesting.
need to be
Why
on the
don't I
streets
drop
like
out
all
of the
these
race?
liberals want him to be. And
It
as
was
part
June
of this operation
24th
here in DC,
when
we've also
Cuomo
taken off
lost
MS-13
Zoran
members.
Mamdani and two
We've
in the
taken, I
top,
think
lost
just
by
last night, we got a
13%.
TDA guy
2 months
off
before,
our streets
the polls
right
were
here,
saying
right around
he was going to have a
where
coronation,
we
right?
all
He was
were.
ahead
Another
40%.
TDA member gone
I'm gonna trust the
because of
polls.
this project. So we're going
And
to
I
keep
was being told,
America
oh, you
safe
got
from
to
all
drop
of
out
these
and back
foreign
Eric
terrorist
Adams. God, oh, Eric,
organizations, including
he's the
Abrego
savior.
Garcia.
Summer's wrapping up, and life is picking back up. Early mornings, long days, he should have been in jail that doesn't quit. And neither should you. Who has time to slow down due to body pain? That's why there's a leave to keep you going. With just one pill, a leave delivers longer-lasting body pain relief per dose compared to other leading OTC branded pain relievers. A leave helps keep you moving from sun up to sundown with up to 12 hours of pain relief per dose, so you can keep moving and be ready for whatever's next. Use as directed.
I am the only mainstream other candidate other than Trump. I am the Republican candidate. I also have an independent line, first ever, protect animals, no-kill shelters, put animal abusers in jail. I have raised double the amount of Andrew Cuomo from city residents, 15,000, average donation 129. I have more money than Andrew Cuomo. I'm going to drop out?
Steve
You're all
Witkoff has been
business
amazing.
people.
He's done a great job.
Does that make any
But
sense?
I'm the
How
one that
about
got
letting
them all
the
out
people
through
make
my
the
people.
determination
And for
on
me,
November 4th,
and
right?
now
Vote.
we're left with
Vote.
probably
Get the
a little
vote
bit
out.
less than 20 because I think one or two are
Sounds
gone.
like you're still considering.
And I said a long time ago, I'm going to get them out, but when we get down to that final 10 or 20,
Public
these
safety,
people aren't going to release them
you've
because
staked your
they're
whole
dead
career on
after
public
they
safety.
release them.
Can you say
So
what's missing
it's
from
a
the
nasty
ways that Andrew
situation.
Cuomo and Zoran
Very
Mamdani
nasty,
talk
horrible
about public
thing.
safety?
Yes.
Well, just the other day, I think we can all agree whether you agree with his politics or not. Rudy Giuliani
Well, I heard
was the
that
best
there were
law and
raids
order
on
mayor we
churches
had.
over the last
He
few
inherited
days.
a city in
Very vicious raids on
1993,
churches by
2,000 murders a
the
year,
new government
10,000
in
unsolved
South Korea.
shootings.
That
And
they
when it
even
came
went
to
into our
public
military
safety, he
base and
deemed
got
me his
information
apprentice because I
he
really
probably
was.
shouldn't have done
I
that,
learned
but
so
I
much
heard
from
bad
Rudy
things. I don't know if it's true
and
or
his
not. I'll be
staff at
finding
that
out. As
time.
you
They
know,
put
your new
into
president's
place
coming
accountability in the police
just a couple
department
of hours
and
coming
drove
here.
the
I look forward
crime
to
down
meeting him.
and made
But
New Yorkers
we
feel
won't
safe.
stand for
Prior to
that.
that, they were talking about dividing up the city into 5 separate cities, that it was unmanageable and the crime was overwhelming.
Cities if those
If you don't deal with the crisis of public safety, then you can't retain your workers. This is
Everybody knows how bad it
this
is.
is a
Everybody
debate
standing
cycle
there knows. We
amongst
know. You
our
don't have to be
the
doing
three
any
of us
studies.
who remain
They should
that
be
has been
saying,
void of
"Please come
discussing
in."
women as victims.
Pritzker should be
My
saying
wife
that.
brought
You know, I
that to
did a
everybody's
favor for
attention.
Christy,
She did my first TV
for,
commercial.
Christy Whitmer.
First time in my life I ever
Whitmer.
kept my mouth shut. There was nothing that I could say.
good favor, I
and she
think,
pointed out,
with
you're in the subways, you're in the
fish caught.
streets, you're being perved on,
China
sexually
crop. Did you ever
harassed.
hear
They
of
have
it?
this new
China
term,
crop.
random attacks.
And
What do you
it's,
mean
taken
random
over
attack?
your
They're targeting
Great
women.
Lakes. You know
Women
about
are the
that, right?
majority of the workforce.
And
They become the majority
she
in
came
some
and
places.
she
Managers,
wanted to
nightlife cannot
know
survive.
it was
They
possible
own
for us to do
restaurants,
something about it. I said, well,
bars,
I'll do it.
and nightclubs. They
I
manage
think it's
them. They work
appropriate
there, and they
that
tell me,
the
I can't
person
afford to
from
keep
Illinois,
taking
the
yellow
governor from
cabs, Ubers,
Illinois,
and
asks
lifts.
also, it's a
I feel
tremendously
unsafe in
expensive
New York
project,
City.
actually.
If
It's,
nothing more,
invasive.
we
It's
have to
horrible what's
protect
happened.
the
And
women
we can do it
who are like
with
Bambi in the
GSA
middle of
and
hunting
various people.
season wearing an
But we can
orange
do it.
fluorescent
We're
vest
gonna
while
just
the
have to
hunters are
see
training down
what
their
happens,
Winchester
okay? We're
double
gonna have
barrel
to see what
shotguns on
happens.
them.
But
Talk to
But
the
governor of
women.
Michigan came,
Stop
was very
just talking
respectful,
to men,
asked for
and
it.
you'll know they don't feel
She's done a
safe.
good job.
Can we just refocus on policy a little bit?
I
What's
did that.
missing from the
the Air Force
In the
Base, you know,
subways,
kept it open.
of which
for
I'm the only candidate in the
F-35s
subways
and
every day,
various planes,
even with the
F-22s,
threats
too.
against me lately, for the
I did
first
that
time
for
in
the
my
state of
life, I've
Michigan
had
at her
armed
request.
guards with me. And I'm the guy that was
And I
shot
will-
5
and also
times
at our
on the orders of
congressman,
John
you know, we
Gotti
have
Sr., the John Gotti Jr., and the
unbelievably
Gambino crime family.
pro-Michigan
Never had
up
armed
there.
guards. But I still go on the
But
subways.
Some of this stuff,
and
like the
what we have
lakes,
to do there
the Great
is
Lakes,
take
this is
the
a big
uniform
problem
transit
that nobody ever
police
talks about.
and
Most of
put
you
them on the
probably have never
moving
heard of it. We have a
trains.
very
They're on the
pretty violent
platforms.
fish
They're up near the
as,
turnstiles, and they're
comes from
watching
China.
the Irish sweepstakes. Men
China
and women
carp,
going under
Chinese
the
carp.
turnstile, over the turnstile,
And,
through the
you
emergency
see them
gate.
jumping out, they jump
Citizens
into
Budget
boats and they
Commission
jump
said we
all over
lost
the place.
$1
They've got a lot of
billion
energy.
in various fare
And,
evasion just last year alone.
there's a way of
We're going to
getting
stop
rid
the
of them.
fare
It's very
evasion.
expensive.
We're going to ticket
And-
them. We're going to arrest them.
And
I
I didn't
pay,
get a
everybody
request from
pays. You have
the
reduced
governor
fare.
of
There's all different
Illinois
ways we can
is
help the poor and the
affected maybe more
indigent,
than
but that
anybody
has
else,
to
right?
stop, and you have to have the
And I
police
think until I
officers
get that
going up and
request from
down the
that guy, I'm
moving
not gonna do
trains as they
anything
used to.
about it.
Most
And I
of
feel
the
the same
problems
way
are on the
about
moving
crime.
trains. Do you
We go
really
in,
think
we will
somebody's
solve
going to get off
Chicago
on a
within 1 week,
platform
maybe less, but
and
within
go
1 week
looking
we will
for
have
a
no
police
crime in
officer
Chicago,
to
just
deal
like
with the
we have no
problem? They're
crime in
stuck on the
D.C.
train. insane. With the violators,
you know,
the
I don't
emotionally
like to go in
disturbed,
and
the
do
homeless
it
who are acting
and then
up.
have somebody
That all
stand up
has
and
to
say
be
what a
addressed.
great
The
job
homeless
he's
come
doing in
off,
crime.
we put them in
And we
safe
don't want
shelters because
the
they're not
military
safe
in
now.
our
I've been in half
state.
of them.
We don't want the
And we take
military.
the emotionally disturbed
understand?
and put them in the state hospitals,
Do you understand?
of which
So
Andrew
I don't know
Cuomo, when
if
he
there was
came in,
no-
had
we're gonna have a
20,000
meeting, I
beds.
think,
He made
you know, I
draconian
feel
cuts
like
there were only 4,000.
We go in and we do it,
So
like
he's
here.
part of the problem.
To a lesser
no
extent
cash
with the mayor.
bail.
She
Zoran
hasn't been
is all
terrible,
into
but
that.
she hasn't been,
They are the
exactly
candidates
saying,
who favor
"Oh, great."
the
She said- she
violators.
did say
I am the
last night, I
candidate
heard her
who
say that,
protects
"Well,
the
we
victims."
really don't want the military.
That's how you
And
can
he said, "Well, that's,
differentiate
not
those
very
two
nice. I guess.
and me.
That's a
So
little
let's
bit of
switch
a
gears
hit.
to something.
But she's not as bad as
important to
some.
this audience in housing and
We
property
saved Los
taxes.
Angeles.
So
And
another question.
all
from-
we did
from
is
Jim
get
Wayne
criticized
Whitney.
by this
What would you
idiot
say
that's
to
running
mom
the
and pop
state into
landlords
the ground,
facing
right?
double-digit
People are leaving.
cost increases and
He should be thanking us. And
The
he should
mom
be
and pop
requesting
shops, right?
us to be there.
Okay.
And the governor of Illinois should be. Chicago's
I'm very,
a disaster.
very familiar
And
with that.
The governor
the
of
outer
Illinois
boroughs.
should say,
But also,
President,
ever
would you
since
do us
this
the honor
additional
of
tax of
cleaning up our city? We
congestion
need help.
pricing,
They
a
need help.
complete disaster.
They need help.
Have you walked down the side streets? Have you walked down the main thoroughfares?
We may or may not.
Across
we may
the
just
street
go
from
in and
City
do
Hall
it,
itself,
which is probably what we should
9
do.
small
The
shops
problem is,
that
it's
were
not
run by
nice when you go
merchants
in
for
and
many
do it,
years
and somebody else
are
is
now
standing there
closed, and
saying,
they put this
as we give
brown
great
paper
results,
wrap on it that
say,
we used to wrap our books in public school
we
with
don't
when
want
you
the
couldn't
military.
afford the high-priced wrap.
They need help
It
badly.
looks
Chicago
chintzy, it looks
desperately needs
bad.
help.
Anybody walking
just
up and
look at
down
the-
is saying
the crime
New York City is in
statistics. Look at
decline.
the
And when I ask the
statistics that
merchants
JD
time and time
said
again,
about-
why are you
even I didn't know it was
closing?
that
They
bad.
say,
That's
we don't have
terrible,
enough
but
foot traffic.
all I know is
and we're
being
constantly being
celebrated
taken advantage of
because we
by the
went an
shoplifters who
entire
come in
week.
and
Now
out with
it's
an
11
easy
days.
pass.
We
And my
went an
margins
entire
are
week
so
without a
small, I
murder.
just can't
And I
do
said,
it. Then you
boy,
go
that
into the
sounds
outer
terrible.
boroughs, it's a
I didn't know
complete
how to actually
catastrophe.
made a speech. I
They
didn't know how to
employ
say it,
a
'cause
million
it's a
people
great
in the small
number, it's a
businesses
great
of New
thing,
York City. A
but it
million
sounds so
New
bad.
Yorkers
I mean, supposing
get
you're
their
from a
gainful
foreign country,
employment in
which is
small
properly
businesses,
run,
and
they
they're
don't have murders
closing
and
up
things,
for a
right, so
variety
much.
of reasons. The
Or
fees,
in some
the
cases,
fines,
virtually at
the
all.
property tax. Many
And
times the only
you have
reason you
somebody
can stay in
saying, "I'm proud
business
to
is you
announce
actually
that
own the building."
nobody was
They
murdered
raised it 20%.
in the capital of the
I'm going
United
to cut
States this
that
week.
property tax. That's
It
one
sounds
thing
terrible.
that a mayor has control of, is the property tax, and it's outrageous. 20% in the outer boroughs.